bensound.com. 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 bensound.com.
bensound.com. O microfone, você pode usar a pulseira que está funcionando. Só dá uma ligadinha. E todos. Então, é com muita alegria que nós estamos aqui nessa tarde hoje e gostaria de agradecer a presença de todos vocês que estão aqui hoje, nessa terça-feira calorenta de Ribeirão Preto, né, aos colegas que estão também aí remoto, participando desse evento. Boa tarde, muito obrigada. Em nome do programa de pós-graduação em psicologia, gostaria de dizer sobre a nossa felicidade com essa tarde, com esse evento que nós estaremos aqui discutindo essa temática tão importante. E aí, antes de apresentar o professor, gostaria de agradecer bastante ao professor Miguel Bairrão, coordenador do Laboratório de Etnopsicologia, que nos colocou em contato, né, a segunda vez que o professor John está aqui em Ribeirão Preto, mas que organizou toda essa semana, essa agenda, os eventos. Então, agradeço a todo o grupo de pesquisa, gostaria de agradecer também bastante à professora Laura Vilela, que está aqui também e que vai estar coordenando essa semana uma disciplina em parceria com o professor John, que vai ser oferecida no nosso programa de pós-graduação, e todo o pessoal do grupo de pesquisa, e agradeço aí especialmente a colega Juliana Brant, que trocamos muitas mensagens e contatos, e no nome dela agradeço todos os pós-graduandos e pesquisadores do laboratório que trabalharam bastante para que essa semana de atividades estivesse acontecendo. Então, nós estamos muito felizes, é a segunda vez que nosso programa de pós-graduação recebe o professor John aqui. Ele esteve aqui já em 2015, né, numa época que, para os colegas que estavam aqui no programa, ficou muito registrado a afetividade, o engajamento do professor John naquela época, conversando com diferentes atores. E, nesse momento, mais uma vez, ele volta aqui para Ribeirão Preto e sempre muito preocupado de estar plantando e estar aguando, molhando essa semente, que germine, que realmente esse trabalho bonito que ele vem fazendo continue aqui. Então, não vou me prolongar mais, vou apresentar, então, nossa honra, muito obrigada. Thank you so much, Professor John, to be here with us. It's a great pleasure to receive you here and to see all the provocations and all the agenda and everything you are doing here with us. Thank you very much. Então, o professor John Stanfield é professor emérito da Universidade de Indiana, campus de Bloomington, em estudos afro-americanos, diáspora africana, estudos africanos, estudos americanos, estudos caribenhos e latino-americanos. Nos Estados Unidos, ele também atuou na Escola de Filantropia e Governança da família Lilly, na Universidade de Yale, na Universidade da Califórnia Davis, entre outras instituições de prestígio. No Brasil, ele ocupou a cátedra Fulbright em Estudos Americanos e Sociologia na PUC do Rio de Janeiro, nos anos de 2006 a 2012. No continente africano, nós temos que assinalar a sua passagem entre 2018 e 2019 pela Etiópia, na qualidade de ilustre embaixador acadêmico dos Estados Unidos. Também atuou no Conselho de Pesquisa em Ciências Humanas da África do Sul, na Cidade do Cabo, e lecionou no Programa de Políticas Públicas da Universidade de Walden, em Joanesburgo. No Botsuana, entre 2014 e 2015, ele foi professor ilustre interino e fundador do Instituto de Governança e Desenvolvimento Internacional MOGAI, e trabalhou na Universidade Internacional de Ciências e Tecnologia. Ainda no continente africano, ele foi conselheiro estratégico sênior da Comissão Nacional de Unidade e Reconciliação de Ruanda, e atuou no Conselho de Governança de Ruanda nos anos entre 2007 e 2008. Atualmente, ele é diretor da ASARP, Estudos Avançados de Ideias e Políticas do Renascimento Africano, nas Maurícias e na África do Sul, 2019 e 2020, na Universidade de Maurícias, na Cátedra de Estudos Africanos. O professor tem investido o melhor dos seus esforços generosamente na construção de uma rede global de pesquisadores, iniciativas que possam efetivamente descolonizar e deshierarquizar epistemologias e promover um mundo melhor. Projeto com o qual nos identificamos e nós temos profunda afinidade. Então, com muita honra, né, o nosso programa, esse ano, desde o ano passado, vem discutindo bastante questões de ações afirmativas, né? A USP começou na graduação há poucos anos, na pós-graduação é algo ainda muito novo e recente. A pró-reitoria atual montou um grupo de trabalhos para discutir esse ano, e nosso programa já conseguiu se adiantar. Nós estamos agora no primeira vez, nós estamos com um edital de mestrado, com ações afirmativas, e nós temos certeza que essa visita do professor John vai trazer muitas reflexões, muitas contribuições para que a gente possa continuar pensando em ações que sejam efetivas nessa direção. Então, agradeço bastante, professor. Thank you very much.
Olá.
Olá.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
Prazer estar aqui.
Thank you, my dear Professor Dr. Glisa, for your warm welcome, and
Obrigada, doutora.
Grateful to my my brother, colleague, and friend, Professor Miguel, and
Obrigado, meu amigo e colega, doutor Miguel.
and for members of his ethnopsychology lab,
E todos os membros de psicologia,
especially Ms. Mariana and Ms. Juliana, and for wonderful colleagues who have been working behind the scenes, allowing me to have the privilege of being with you once again. And so, before we begin,
antes da gente começar,
I have a gift
eu tenho um presente.
I'd like to present to the Department of Psychology, especially to the lab,
Eu gostaria de providenciar para a psicologia,
Psychology Lab, to
para
present
a
it
psicologia,
to my good brother, friend,
o meu grande amigo,
Miguel.
irmão Miguel.
What I gave to my dear friend,
O que eu dei para o meu amigo,
very interesting momento
um momento
from
interessante
Mauritius,
para Maurício,
where I'm now a permanent resident,
onde eu sou um residente permanente.
and so it's a presentation of the most precious symbol,
É um símbolo mais
Mauritius.
precioso de Maurício,
which is the dodo bird.
que é o Dodô.
The dodo bird is
É o pássaro de Dodô.
the symbol of Mauritius.
É o símbolo de Maurício.
And unfortunately, since the 1600s,
Infelizmente, desde de 1600,
it's been extinct.
não existe mais,
But
extinto.
it has such a great, deep meaning.
Mas ele tem um significado profundo.
And so I decided to bring the dodo bird
Então, eu decidi trazer o passarinho Dodô para o Brasil,
right here.
aqui para vocês.
Okay, and so
Okay.
whenever you
Cada
think
vez
about Mauritius
que você lembra de
and
Mauritius,
what Mauritius stands for,
o que Mauritius significa,
you can come to the Ethnopsychology Laboratory.
cada vez que você vê nesse laboratório de
Sim.
psicologia,
This symbol,
e você vê esse símbolo.
for those of you who not aware,
Para aqueles que não sabem,
and don't feel bad if you're not,
não se sente mal se você não sabe,
but Mauritius is
Mauritius
Africa's most eastern country.
África
Mauritius is Africa's most eastern country.
África é o país mais oriental. O Mauritius é o país mais oriental da África.
It's located in the Indian Ocean.
Está localizado no Oceanos Indianos.
And so it's an island state.
Então é uma ilha.
It's one of the emerging democracies in Africa.
É uma das imagens
Democracies in
democracia
Africa.
na África.
It's rising very rapidly. Rapidly is rising.
E está
It's rising very rapidly.
crescendo rapidamente,
As a democracy to watch.
como um domínio democrático na África.
It's already surpasses South Africa
Está passando na África do Sul
in several indicators of democracy development.
e sobre muitas indicações de democracia na África.
So it's a country of about 1.3 million.
É um país de 1,3 milhões
It's
de
a
pessoas.
very multicultural country.
É um país de multiculturais,
Indian,
indianos,
African,
africanos,
other Asians.
os asianos, ou asiáticos.
And so a very, very mixed, also very multi-religious,
É muito religioso também.
Hindu,
Hindu,
Muslim,
muçulmanos,
Christian,
cristianismo,
Tamil, all kinds,
todo
different
tipo.
kinds of religions.
Qualquer tipo de religião.
And so, to a rather large extent, it's a country that has a very ambitious leadership. Very ambitious leadership.
Como você pode entender, é um país que tem
They want to become a big league country.
eles querem se tornar um país maior,
Much impact.
com muito impacto.
Not only in Asia and Africa, but around the world.
Não só na Ásia ou na África, mas no mundo inteiro.
Next, please.
Próximo.
ASAPI is my think tank. It's my policy advocacy think tank.
ASAPI é meu algo
ASAPI is my policy advocacy think tank. It's a think tank.
Ok. ASAP é meu a policy de pensamento africano. Isso, a políticas africanas.
Yeah, right. Yes, it's a versatile, it's an online think tank for the most part. It's an online, it's a versatile think tank. It's mostly Zoom.
É sempre online, é sempre no Zoom,
It's mostly Skype.
sempre no Skype.
We also do face-to-face.
Algumas vezes a gente faz face a face.
Okay, but for the most part, we are what we call a versatile think tank. A versatile think tank. We're everywhere in the world.
Algumas vezes a gente está no lugar, todos os lugares do mundo. A gente faz nas salas.
During the COVID,
Durante o Covid,
we learned what being versatile meant.
a gente aprendeu a ser na sala de...
We've learned that we don't have to be physical.
A gente aprendeu a não ser físico, pessoalmente.
We don't have to be physical to do things together.
A gente não tem que estar fisicamente para fazer as coisas juntos.
We can do things virtually.
A gente pode fazer virtualmente.
Okay, just like right now,
Como agora,
we have this wonderful meeting together.
A gente está tendo uma reunião aqui
It's quite
juntos.
physical.
A gente tem uma
But
física.
also we have a number of people
A
who
gente
are on Zoom.
tem algumas pessoas que estão no Zoom,
Okay, who can participate.
que pode participar.
This is one of the things about being in the digital age.
Esse aí que você tem que...
The digital age means we no longer have to be physical.
Quando você tem... Isso quer dizer que a gente não pode ser apenas
We
físico.
can be virtual
A gente pode ser virtual.
and get a lot of things done.
E a gente pode fazer muitas coisas feito.
And so, as unfortunate as the COVID was,
Infelizmente, como o Covid
that was
aconteceu,
one of the, or is, because we're not finished with the COVID yet.
isso aí era mas é uma das coisas que
It's
nós,
one of the things that we're learning about human reality,
a gente não terminou com o
about-
Covid,
about
mas
getting things done,
é umas coisas que a gente aprendeu com a humanidade, que está sendo feito,
like education.
como educação.
It doesn't always have to be physical.
Não tem que ser sempre o físico.
It can be virtual.
Pode ser
and be
virtual.
just as effective,
E pode ser também efetivo.
if not more effective.
Não é muito mais efetivo.
And so, ASAPI
Então, a SAP
is a virtual think tank.
é uma coisa virtual.
We're not just physical.
Não é só físico.
Which is the reason why, by the way,
É por isso, algumas vezes, porque
I'm welcoming here. I'm glad to be here.
estou feliz de estar aqui.
But my presentation isn't just one time,
Minha apresentação não é só apenas uma vez.
because from what we're going to be talking about today,
O que a gente vai estar falando hoje,
we can continue to talk about virtually.
a gente pode continuar falando isso virtualmente.
We're going to have all kinds of workshops and
gente vai-
seminars.
A gente vai ter todo tipo de
and
workshops,
conferences.
seminários, conferências.
Okay, and so don't think that this is a one-shot thing.
Não pensa que é só uma vez só.
Here's Professor John.
Tem muitos professores
here
aqui,
physically,
fisicamente,
in Brazil,
no
and
Brasil.
then bye-bye. No.
Não quer dizer
We're
tchau,
talking
tchau.
about ways of sustaining a very important conversation.
A gente tem uma maneira de sustentar
That
uma
we
boa
must have.
conversa.
Now, ASAPI
Então, a SAP
stands for,
significa...
next please. ASAPI stands for the Institute for Advanced Study of African Renaissance Policies Ideas.
A SAP significa Instituto para Estudos Avançados de Renascentes Ideias Políticas Africanas.
Okay, thank you. Now, you notice that the words the Institute for
As
are
palavras
in
Instituto para,
parentheses,
entre aspas,
because the Institute for Advanced Study of African Renaissance Policy Ideas is how we are registered in South Africa.
é como a gente está registrado na África do Sul, por causa disso.
We are in Mauritius
Estamos na
and
Mauritius
we are in South Africa.
e na África do Sul.
In South Africa, we are indeed called the Institute for the Advanced Study of African Renaissance Policies Ideas. That's our name.
Na África do Sul tem outro nome.
In Mauritius, next. In Mauritius,
Na Mauritius,
we are the advanced study
nós somos um estudo avançado
for African Renaissance policies ideas.
para
Now, what this is that in Mauritius,
a Mauritius.
please next. In Mauritius,
Na Mauritius,
we do our work through, we call these study practice groups.
fazemos nosso trabalho. Nosso trabalho chamamos isso de grupo
We
prático de estudos.
we bring together people
Trazemos as pessoas juntos
to address a very important policy issue.
para a gente poder abranger uma coisa, assuntos políticos.
We bring them
Trazemos
around
eles
the world
no mundo todo,
through Zoom,
para o Zoom,
perhaps,
talvez,
or even face to face,
talvez face a face,
to address a certain issue.
para a gente direcionar um assunto tal.
We're sure to make sure everybody, all the major stakeholders,
Todos
all
os
the major
cantos,
stakeholders
os
who are supposed to be
principais,
there
tem que estar lá,
are there.
eles têm que estar lá.
Okay, we don't exclude any stakeholders.
Nós não excluímos ninguém.
If this is a problem
Esse é o problema
impacting poor people.
que impacta pessoas pobres.
We make sure we have representations from poor people communities.
A gente faz uma representação de comunidades
We
pobres.
don't exclude poor people
Nós não excluímos pessoas pobres
while we're trying to deal with poverty.
que estão lidando com pobreza.
If we're dealing with students,
Se a gente está lidando com estudantes,
education,
educação,
we make sure we include students
a gente tem certeza, a gente
in our
inclui
deliberations.
os estudantes na nossa colaboração.
We don't exclude students and say that we're concerned about students.
A gente não exclui os estudantes falando, não está concluindo os
How can you
estudantes.
do that?
Como é que você
How can you
faz
say
isso? Como é que você diz?
that you're concerned about students?
Você se considera como você está preocupado com os estudantes,
But you're not including students
mas você não
in your
inclui
deliberations.
os estudantes na colaboração.
Does that make sense?
Isso não faz sentido.
Of course it does not. And so all of our study practice groups,
Todos aqueles grupos de estudo de prático,
we include representatives
nós incluímos representativos
from the highest in government,
do governo lá numa altura, o maior do governo,
the highest in civil society,
na,
like in business, like in business,
yeah,
like in media,
como nos negócios, como na mídia,
as well as the people who are the least powerful.
com as pessoas que têm menos poder.
And so we bring all kinds of people
Trazemos todos os tipos de pessoas,
representing all kinds of walks of life
todos que representam todo tipo de vida,
to come together,
para se reunir.
not only to address,
Não só para se direcionar,
but to recommend
para recomendar
a best practice
melhor prático,
for resolving
para resolver
a problem.
problema.
So we are not just an abstract academic. We are not just abstract. We are not just academic.
Nós não somos apenas acadêmico,
We're very practical.
nós somos práticos,
We're very focused
nós somos focados
in getting to the problem
para resolver o problema
of issues.
de qualquer assunto.
That's a SAPI.
Esse é SAP.
Next, please. A SAPiversity
A SAPiversity
is our teaching
é ensinar
and learning
e aprender.
that's part of a SAPI.
Isso faz parte de SAP.
So a SAPI isn't just study practice,
A SAP não é só estudar e praticar,
but also a SAPiversity
mas a SAP University
is our teaching and learning.
é ensinar e aprender.
Our teaching and learning about human rights.
É ensinar e aprender sobre direitos humanos.
Everything that we learn,
Tudo que a gente aprende,
everything we learn,
tudo que a gente aprende,
everything we learn
tudo que a gente
is
aprende
rooted and grounded in human rights.
é feito e fundado nos direitos humanos.
Even accounting
Até contar,
is rooted and grounded in human rights.
enraizado e colocado nos direitos humanos.
Even music
Até música
is rooted and grounded in human rights.
é enraizado, é fundado
There's-
em direitos
There's
humanos.
nothing
Não há nada
that we human beings are about
que nós, seres humanos,
in terms
estamos
of teaching and learning.
de ensinar e aprender.
There's nothing
Não há nada
that is divorced from human rights.
é feito para os direitos
We're
humanos.
all human beings,
Todos os seres humanos,
irrespective of whether we talk about engineering,
quando a gente fala sobre
we
engenharia,
talk about architecture,
arquitetura,
we talk about politics,
falamos sobre política,
we talk about social work,
sobre obras sociais,
we talk about sociology,
quando a gente fala sobre sociologia,
psychology,
psicologia,
literature,
literatura,
primary education,
educação primária,
secondary education,
educação secundária,
religion,
religião,
spirituality.
espiritualismo.
All of these matters about humanity are rooted and grounded in human rights.
Tudo sobre a humanidade é enraizado e fundado sobre
And
os
so
direitos
we have
humanos.
a SAPiversity.
Então, somos o SAPiversity.
We offer an opportunity for universities
Nós oferecemos oportunidade para
around the
universidades
world
ao redor do mundo.
to offer courses
Nós oferecemos cursos
and degrees of
E-
various kinds.
e
Degrees of various kinds. You get a master's degree, a PhD.
formações
You get a vocational degree, no matter what kind of degree it is.
Nós oferecemos graduações,
It's
master,
master's
mestrado,
degree, a
doutorado,
PhD. Every degree
qualquer
in a
formação.
university, every degree in a university is related to human rights.
Qualquer formação ou
You know, it's a new way of talking about education
é uma nova maneira de falar sobre educação
and learning.
e aprender.
Okay?
Ok?
We live in a brand new world.
Nós vivemos num mundo novo.
We live in a world where Africa and Asia
Vivemos num mundo onde a África e a Ásia
and Latin America
e Latinoamérica
are
América
becoming centered in the world.
estão ficando centralizados no mundo.
That has profound meaning
Isso tem um fundamento,
to how we
significado
to how we
profundo.
educate people.
Como nós educamos as pessoas.
Now, we heard about post-colonial.
Nós já ouvimos falar de pós-colônia,
We've heard about post-Cold War. Post-Cold War.
pós-guerra mundial. Ok? Pós-guerra mundial.
Okay? We've heard about these things.
Já ouvi falar
Okay?
sobre essas
It's a
coisas.
brand new world.
É um novo mundo.
The South is emerging. The North is declining.
Ok. O sul está subindo e o norte está descendo. Diminuindo.
The West is declining.
O pior está diminuindo. O pior está piorando.
Is emerging.
E o oeste,
And the East is emerging. The East, you know, the West is declining. The West is declining. The
ok,
East is emerging.
ok, ok.
Okay?
O oeste está crescendo. Não é isso, ok? Gente, não se preocupa não, tem 13 línguas na minha cabeça. Just because of it's the west. In Portuguese, for me, remember?
I'm not going too fast.
It's okay.
No, I mean, and by the way, you know, I was in Phuket, Rio, for a couple of weeks before I came here.
Eu estava no PUC, no Rio de Janeiro, uns dias
And what I
que antes de
had
vir aqui.
to remind my translator
O que eu tinha que lembrar meu
is
tradutor,
the language
a língua,
is different.
é diferente.
What I'm talking about
O que eu estou
is a
falando
different kind of language.
é outro tipo de
You know,
língua.
People are not used to talking this way.
As pessoas não estão acostumadas a falar dessa maneira.
And so it's a struggle.
Então é uma dificuldade.
Okay, it's not because I'm going too fast
Não é porque eu estou correndo,
or he's going too slow.
ou eu estou indo devagar.
You know, we're creating a new way.
Nós criamos
of
uma nova
thinking
maneira
about
de
these
pensar.
issues. Okay, so stick with us. So a SAP University then is a way of integrates human rights.
A SAP
into
Universidade é
how
uma
we
maneira de
learn.
integrar os direitos humanos como aprender.
That's right, how we learn.
Como a gente aprende?
You know, because we're talking about a world where people who have been historically oppressed
A gente está falando num país, num mundo onde as pessoas estão oprimidos.
are beginning to come to the top.
Estão começando a ficar lá no topo.
What does it mean to become on the top
E o que isso quer dizer ficar no topo?
in the world
No mundo,
where, historically speaking, for centuries,
historicamente falando, desde séculos,
you've been ignored,
você foi ignorado.
you're marginalized.
Marginalizados.
You're marginalized.
Marginalizados.
What is that?
O que é isso?
What is that?
O que é isso?
What does it have to be? Because it's who we are.
Tem que ser isso que a gente somos.
Okay, next please. We have SAP University.
SAP University.
We spend time
Gastamos
publishing the
tempo
works of people
publicando o trabalho das pessoas
in populations
nas populações.
that have tended to be ignored,
Algumas vezes é ignorado,
marginalized,
marginalizado,
or misinterpreted.
mal interpretados.
Okay, so we are a Pan-African. We are a Pan-African,
Nós somos-
growing Pan-Asian think tank.
Nós somos o pan-africano, o crescimento pan-africano, o asiático pan. Não sei como traduzir isso.
So yes, so a brand new thing,
Uma nova coisa, uma coisa nova.
a brand new thing.
Uma coisa
Okay.
nova.
Of not only being concerned about Africans, but also Asians.
Não sou considerado ou se direcionar aos africanos, mas os asiáticos também.
And the rest of the world.
O resto do mundo também.
25 years ago,
25 anos
we
atrás,
would have been talking about Europe
a gente está só falando sobre a Europa,
and North America,
Norte América.
and how other parts of the world fit into
Mas como tem no mundo
North America.
norte-americano,
Now things are flipping,
agora as coisas estão mudando.
and we have to ask ourselves the question:
A gente tem pergunta, nós temos que fazer uma pergunta.
what does that mean
O que isso significa
about
sobre
what we know,
o que nós sabemos,
our knowledge?
nosso conhecimento?
What does it mean
O que
in
significa
terms
em
of our
termos
common
de
sense?
nosso conhecimento?
What does it mean about science? What sciences are?
O que significa ciência? O que significa? O que é ciência?
What theologians talk about?
O que os teólogos falam?
What's going on here?
O que está acontecendo
So
aqui?
this is a sort of venue
Esse aqui é um tipo de coisa
that ASAP operates in.
que o ASAP opera.
Okay? So next please. One of our concerns is
Uma das nossas
intercultural opening universities
intercultural, abrindo universidades
in multiracial societies.
em sociedades multirraciais.
Yes, right. Brand new terminology. Brand new terminology. It's brand new terminology. It's brand new terminology. Terminology.
E essa terminologia novas,
Yeah, brand new.
são novas.
Right? See, what does it mean to be intercultural? Open.
Intercultural,
What does
aberto.
what does that mean?
O que significa
Really,
realmente
to be not tolerant, not tolerant,
não ser tolerante,
but being open.
mas ser aberto?
What is that?
O que é isso?
You know, in multiracial societies,
Nos sociedades multirracionais,
I say especially when I say multiracial societies,
quando eu falo no
I mean,
sociedades multirracionais,
I mean two kinds of societies.
estou falando de dois tipos de sociedades, especialmente.
Okay, because there are many kinds of multiracialized societies.
Porque houve vários tipos de sociedades multirracionais,
But I'm talking about two,
mas eu estou falando apenas de dois,
especially.
especialmente.
So what does it mean to be interculturally opening
O que significa ser aberto interculturalmente
in these kind of societies?
nesse tipo de sociedades?
And one of the reasons why that's important
Um dos motivos que são importantes
is because in
Porque
these kind of societies,
esse tipo de sociedades,
usually universities are behind times. They're behind.
a maioria das vezes as
They're
faculdades
in front.
estão atrás, estão na frente.
They're behind. They're not in front.
Eles estão atrás, não na frente.
They tend to be what we call in America, they drag their feet. They drag their feet. They resist change. They resist.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
E o que a gente chama na América o pé do dragão.
okay. African slavery legacy societies.
Sociedade.
These are
Yes, one second, let me
societies
just translate
of
that.
today. The societies today,
Essas são sociedades de hoje,
like Mauritius,
como Mauritius,
like South Africa,
como África do Sul,
like the United States,
como Estados Unidos,
and even Brazil.
até o Brasil.
You know, these are societies that were derived from the African slave trade.
Essas são as sociedades que chegaram das
The African slave trade,
como é que fala? Escravatura. da África, é isso? Existe essa palavra em português? Escravidão, obrigado.
Yeah,
Da África.
African slave trade that lasted about 500 years.
Isso é quantos,
One- 500 years.
quantos são uns 500 anos atrás?
Yeah, that's a long time.
É muito tempo.
It's a long time.
É muito tempo.
These are very old societies,
Essas são sociedades muito, muito velhas.
rooted and grounded in the African slave trade.
Fundado com a escravidão africana.
They were plantation
E plantados,
societies.
sociedades plantadas.
There are societies that had different kinds of relationships.
Tinha sociedade com relações diferentes
between the European
Entre-
dominating population
entre os europeus que nomearam aquela
and
população
the enslaved population.
e teve população
Some were
de
Portuguese,
escravização.
some were English,
Alguns foram portugueses, alguns ingleses,
some were Spanish,
alguns espanhóis,
some were German,
alguns alemães,
so forth and so on. Italian.
italianos,
But they all have one thing in common,
mas eles têm uma coisa em comum.
is that they created these dehumanized
Mas eles criaram
societies
essas sociedades.
based upon African enslavement.
Eles criaram essa sociedade baseado no escravidão africana.
So, okay. And then you have the second kind of society, old empire states.
Temos a segunda sociedade,
Old empire states
são os estados de império velhos,
are these original
são originalmente
colonial powers,
são colônias, poderes coloniais,
like the United Kingdom,
como Reino Unido,
like Germany,
como a Alemanha,
France,
como a França,
Spain,
como a Espanha,
Italy,
como a Itália,
that are the old white powers,
são velhos poderes brancos.
and now they're becoming quite different.
Agora estão se tornando um pouquinho diferente.
You heard about what happened in the United Kingdom.
Vocês já ouviram falar, vocês ouviram o que aconteceu no Reino Unido?
First British Prime Minister
Primeiro-ministro
of Asian, of Asian descent. He's the first South Asian Prime Minister.
Ele é o mesmo ministro da Ásia também.
Okay, thank you very much. So he's the first one.
Ele foi o primeiro.
Okay, we know, I understand that the Prime Minister
Eu entendo que o primeiro-ministro de Portugal,
also comes from Gaul. Also a non-white
ele também não é branco.
citizen of Portugal.
Ele vem de Portugal.
Okay, demographically speaking,
Democraticamente falando,
you have most of the labor force in Western Europe,
sobre as forças
in Western
rebel-
European countries, like in Germany,
como na Alemanha,
okay, like in Britain,
como na Inglaterra, como na França.
and all these old Western European countries.
Esses países velhos do oeste europeu,
The growing majority
a maioria
of the labor force
são
is
forças
non-white.
rebeldes. Não são brancos.
Non-white.
Não são brancos.
So Europe is becoming non-white.
A Europa está ficando não brancos.
Just like the United States
É como nos Estados
is
Unidos,
becoming non-white,
está ficando não brancos,
a majority.
a maioria.
Okay, and in so many respects, it already is a non-white country.
E com todo respeito, existe um país não todo
Yeah, it's non-white,
Todo branco.
non-white country. Thank you. And so this is the reason why
Esse é o motivo por quê
you have such a very hostile white supremacy.
por isso que algumas vezes vocês têm recebimento,
White supremacy response.
supremacia branca.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Okay, thank you very much. Is that better?
Yeah.
So, okay, well, great. Yes, I'm very sorry. I thought my voice was loud enough.
Eu
to
pensei
reach
que
over
minha
here.
voz era muito alta
So,
para poder
anyways,
alcançar.
Okay. So, you have this decline of white supremacy.
Você tem esse declamamento de supremacia branca.
Okay, United States,
Estados Unidos,
Western Europe, European countries like
países europeus,
Germany and
como a Alemanha,
France and Great Britain,
Grande Britânia,
Italy.
a
You know, they're
Itália.
all becoming quite non-white
A maioria está ficando não branca.
in terms of the labor forces. Okay, and so the major consequence of that
A maior da consequência
are
disso,
these emerging right-wing parties,
do lado direita,
right-wing parties, right?
são a parte
And
do lado
even
direito.
here in Brazil, that's what
Como
happened,
aqui no Brasil,
right? But United States, Germany,
Estados Unidos,
well,
Alemanha,
that's part. Sweden is becoming
na
quite
Suécia,
right-wing
está
as
se tornando
well.
uma partida
It's Italy. So that's what I
Parte da
call the
direita.
old empire states.
isso que eu chamo de
next
hoje
please. Okay, and so the question is,
A pergunta é,
how do we deal
como é que a gente lidar
with these societies now?
com essa sociedade agora?
Democracies are in trouble,
Democracia tem
are in
problema
trouble all over the world
no mundo inteiro,
because they're having a hard time
porque estamos tendo um tempo difícil
dealing with these demographic changes.
para lidar com mudanças democráticas.
As long as these democracies were in the firm hands of whites,
Quanto que esses democráticos, as mãos são brancas,
we didn't have these kind of problems.
a gente vai ter esse tipo de problemas.
Now, virtually every democracy in the world,
Qualquer
Is in
tipo de
trouble
democracia está em
because-
problema.
we don't know how to manage the changing demographics.
A gente não sabe lidar com as mudanças
Right, demographics. Okay, thank you.
demográficas.
And so we used to say
Nós costumamos
we
dizer,
need to do more anti-racism
precisamos,
movements and policies. More anti-racism. We have to do more anti-racism.
precisamos fazer mais interraciais.
With the new more anti-racism
Precisamos fazer mais
policies and movements.
interraciais. E movimentos.
But after living in these kind of societies for almost 10 years,
Depois de viver em tipo de sociedade de mais de 10 anos,
not only in America,
agora sou na América,
in Brazil,
no Brasil,
but also in Great Britain,
também na Grande Britânia,
spending time in South Africa,
tenho passado um tempo na África
in Rwanda,
do Sul, Luanda,
and Mauritius now.
agora no Maurícios.
I'm beginning to think
Estou começando a pensar
that anti-racism is not enough.
que interracial não é o suficiente. Ok.
You know, that anti-racism is not enough.
Antirracismo não é o suficiente.
Okay, we need more
Precisamos mais.
than anti-racism
Antirracismos
to address
para
The-
direcionar
development needs of democracy these days.
para a necessidade democrática desses dias.
But we need much more.
Precisamos mais.
Anti-racism, you know, it's nice to be anti-racist. It's important to be anti-racist.
Antirracismo
It's important to be anti-racist.
é importante ser antirracista.
You know, that's the ideology of being progressive, right?
Essa é uma ideologia de ser progressivo.
But we need much more.
Mas precisamos mais.
We need multicultural restorative justice.
Precisamos multicultural para restaurar a justiça.
And before I talk about multicultural restorative justice,
Antes de eu falar do controle da justiça multicultural,
okay, allow me to talk about
permita-me falar sobre
something else that we rarely talk about.
outra coisa que a gente sempre fala.
I'd like to talk about very briefly
Quero falar brevemente
what I call sociological psychology
Eu quero chamar psicologia
sociological psychology,
psicologia sociológica,
of racial prejudice,
preconceito racial,
of racial prejudice and openness.
e aberturas.
Okay, sociological psychology and racial prejudice and openness.
Psicologia social e preconceito racial e aberturas.
Okay, thank you. Now, what is this?
O que é isso?
We live in an academic world
Vivemos no mundo
in
acadêmico,
which we're finally realizing
onde a gente
That we can't-
percebe.
we can't just rely upon one discipline
A gente não pode apenas se inclinar a uma disciplina
to explain human realities.
para explicar a
You know,
realidade humana.
yes, we need to learn how to
Precisamos
be more
aprender.
cross-discipline. Learn how to be more cross-discipline.
A gente pode
Across disciplines. We can't just be psychologists.
Nós não
We
podemos
can't
ser,
just be sociologists.
nós não podemos ser
We
psicólogos,
We can't just be economists.
nós não podemos ser apenas economistas,
We can't just be historians.
nós não podemos ser
We
historiadores,
can't just be people in literature.
a gente não pode ser pessoas na literatura,
We can't just be people in theology.
a gente não pode ser pessoas
We
em
have to learn how to
teologia.
cross disciplines.
A gente temos que aprender a cruzar disciplinas.
Much more.
Mais.
That's where the cutting edge of research is going.
Essa é
The
onde
cutting edge of research
a pesquisa Caniet está indo.
is being cross-discipline,
Está sendo uma disciplina cruzada.
not just one discipline.
Não é só uma disciplina.
And so when I say
Quando eu digo
sociological psychology,
psicologia sociológica,
what I'm talking about
o que eu estou falando
is understanding
é um entendimento,
something very basic
alguma coisa básica
in my perspective.
no meu jeito de pensar, de ver.
You can't be concerned about the individual.
Você não pode se considerar apenas
You can't
Sobre um
be
indivíduo.
concerned about the mental. You can't be concerned about the mental.
Você não pode se considerar apenas o mental.
Unless you're concerned about the group,
Você tem
the
que-
collective,
Você tem que ligar para o
the
grupo
community,
coletivo,
the
da comunidade,
institution.
a instituição.
We can't separate the two.
A gente não pode
We
separar os
need
dois.
to understand both. We
A
need
gente
to
tem que entender os
understand
dois.
both
A gente tem que entender os dois.
Individuals
O
and
individual
collectivities.
e a coletividade.
That's what I mean by sociological psychology.
Isso que eu quis dizer com psicologia sociológica.
And so, racial prejudice. Racial prejudice.
Preconceito racial.
Okay, racial prejudice.
Preconceito
Thank you.
racial.
Racial prejudice is not genetic.
Não é genérico,
It's not biological.
não é biológico.
Prejudice is something that we learn.
É uma,
We learn prejudice.
preconceito é uma coisa que a gente aprende.
There's nothing genetic about it.
Não tem nada genérico.
We learn it.
Nós aprendemos.
It's developmental how we learn it.
Ele desenvolve o jeito que a gente aprende.
Okay, please.
Por favor.
Some principles of what I'm talking about.
Alguns
Please.
princípios que estou falando.
Okay, a racial prejudice about
Preconceito racial.
what is
sobre-
this?
O que é isso?
Race is a myth. Race is a myth.
Racismo é um mito.
There's nothing real about race.
Não há nada
It's
verdade
something,
sobre
that I create.
eu crio.
It's human development
Desenvolvimento
and social learning.
é como aprendizagem social.
Racial prejudice is human development
Preconceito racial é
É
o
social-
desenvolvimento humano,
and social learning.
é como aprendizagem social.
And again, I repeat, there's nothing biological about it.
E eu
there's nothing
repito, não é
genetic
nada biológico
about
sobre isso.
learning how to be prejudiced.
Não é nada que você aprende como ser
Next, please.
preconceituoso.
We learn it at home.
Nós aprendemos em casa,
We learn it from our parents.
aprendemos com nossos pais,
We learn it from our grandparents.
aprendemos com nossos avós,
We learn it from our aunts and uncles,
aprendemos com nossos tios e tias,
from our cousins.
nossos primos.
We learn it from people that we come to know in our neighborhoods.
Nós aprendemos com as pessoas que a gente
That's
conhece
how
nas
we
nossas
learn. That's
vizinhanças.
how we learn racial prejudice.
Assim que a gente aprende preconceito racial.
My mother
Minha mãe
is 98 years old.
tem 98
98
anos.
years
98.
old, going on 48. She's 98 going on 48.
Really? Ela tem 98, indo para 48.
Okay? Very young thinking person,
É uma pessoa nova de pensamento.
but 98.
98.
I didn't have to go, my mother did not have to get a PhD in sociology
Ela não tinha conseguido PhD em sociologia
to understand people.
para entender as pessoas.
I had to go to school to get a PhD.
Eu tinha que ir na
In
escola para
sociology.
conseguir PhD
My-
em sociologia.
My mother is a real sociologist.
Minha mãe é verdadeira socióloga.
And I remember once
Eu lembro uma vez,
she told me a story
ela me contou uma história.
that she was
Okay.
in a store one day
Ela estava numa loja um dia,
and there was a white mother
tinha uma mamãe branca
and a white kid, maybe 5 years old.
e uma criança branca, mais ou menos 5 anos.
And the white little boy said, "Oh, mama, look at the nigger."
E aquela criança diz, mãe, olha para uma negra.
Oh, the mother was so embarrassed.
Oh, a
The
mãe
mother
ficou
was so
envergonhada.
embarrassed.
A mãe ficou envergonhada.
The mother turned red in the face.
Olhou para ela no
Oh,
rosto dela.
I don't know where my child got that from.
Eu não
I'm
sei
so
de
sorry.
onde que minha filha aprendeu isso. Me desculpe.
Sounds like Brazil, doesn't it?
É como no Brasil, não é?
It happens in Brazil, right?
Isso acontece no Brasil também?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Ah, eu não sei, eu
Oh,
não
I'm so
sei.
embarrassed.
Ah, eu estou envergonhado.
I don't know where my child
Eu não sei de onde que meu
said
filho...
such a bad word. Right? You know what my mother said?
Você não aprende a dizer.
My mother said she learned it from you.
Minha mãe diz, ela aprendeu de você.
How else is a little boy
Como é que aquele menino
learn that language unless the little boy hears it from you
Como é que esse garoto aprendeu? Ele aprendeu de você,
at home,
em
around
casa,
the dinner table,
na mesa de
or while you're
jantar,
fixing dinner.
quando vocês estão jantando.
Okay, and so we learn this stuff from home.
Nós aprendemos essas coisas de casa,
This prejudice stuff.
essas coisas em casa.
And so home,
Em casa
the values
são os valores
that we teach our
nós
children.
ensinamos nossos filhos.
You know, the jokes that we tell around the dinner table
As piadas que a gente conta na mesa de
Right.
jantar,
that we don't say in public, but around
a gente
the
não
dinner
fala em
table.
pública, mas a gente fala na mesa de jantar.
And by the way, I'm not just talking about white people, but I'm talking about all people.
Eu não estou falando só apenas de pessoas
By the
brancas,
way,
mas estou falando de todas as pessoas.
Prejudice is a societal problem.
É um
It's a
problema de
problem of the
sociedade.
whole society.
É um problema de sociedade inteira.
Everybody in a society which is racist
Todo mundo na sociedade que é racista
is contaminated
está contaminado.
by it. Okay? And so I'm not just talking about white people.
Não
or
estou
black
falando
people.
apenas ou
I'm talking
brancos
about
ou
people in these kind of societies.
estou falando pessoas nessa sociedade.
Okay? And so there's nobody that can be the angels and the devil.
Não tem pessoas que podem ser os anjos ou os demônios.
Racial prejudice. Racial prejudice.
Preconceito racial.
Racial prejudice affects all of us.
Preconceito racial afeta todos nós.
Next, please. Community.
Comunidade.
too, right? You know,
Também.
we're not just part of a home, but we're part of our community.
Nós somos parte da nossa casa, mas parte da comunidade também.
Where we live.
Aonde a gente mora,
Do we live around other kinds of people?
nós vivemos juntamente com outras
Or do we
pessoas,
live around people looking like me?
ou a gente vive com as pessoas que parecem com a gente.
What's my community?
Qual é a
You see,
minha
You
comunidade?
all grow up in a community, in a neighborhood, someplace.
Você crescendo numa comunidade, alguma vizinhança,
As we get older,
quando a gente
we
fica
move to
velho,
different
mudamos
communities, right? We
outros
move-
bairros, outras
a
comunidades.
university.
Você está na
A
universidade.
university is a community.
Uma faculdade, uma universidade, uma
It
comunidade.
can be totally different from the community I grew up in.
Pode ser completamente diferente da comunidade que
And
você
so,
cresceu.
What's my community?
Qual que é a sua comunidade?
Who do I hang out with in my community?
Quem eu saio da minha comunidade?
Who's my friends?
Quem são
What
meus
kind of
amigos?
friends do I make
Meus amigos que eu encontro
in my community?
na minha comunidade.
When I think back about where I was raised,
Quando eu penso aonde eu cresci,
when you think back about your secondary school,
quando você pensa no seu colegial,
and as you get older,
no seu fundamental,
and think back about university. We can think back about university.
a gente pensa
You get
sobre de
older,
volta
like me.
da faculdade, começa a ficar velho.
Who are your friends
Quem são seus amigos
in college?
na faculdade?
Who did you have coffee with?
Com quem você andava?
Who did you go dancing with?
Com quem você dançava?
Who did you go to church with?
Com quem você ia na igreja?
Interesting, isn't it? Community is a very interesting human experience.
Comunidade é uma coisa humana, uma
Because
experiência
it really impacts our development.
que realmente impacta nosso desenvolvimento.
Who we know,
Quem
who we
conhecemos,
don't know.
quem nós não conhecemos.
Next, please. Society. What in the world
Sociedade.
is that?
O que
We're
que é?
always talking about society.
O mundo inteiro está falando sobre
What
sociedade.
in the world is a society?
Aonde
Have you ever
no mundo
thought
a
about that
sociedade?
before? Have you ever thought about what a society is?
Você já pensou o que é sociedade?
Say, oh, the Brazilian people.
Ou pessoas,
Oh,
os brasileiros,
the American people.
ou os americanos,
Oh, the South African people.
ou os
What in the
sul-africanos?
world
O que é no
on
mundo,
this side of heaven
dos céus,
is a community?
é uma
Is a
comunidade,
society?
é uma sociedade.
A society is everything.
Sociedade é tudo.
That's what it is. It's everything that
Sociedade é isso, é tudo
I create.
que
by
eu
the way.
crio.
You know how we say societies out there? No, I create society.
Sociedade,
Uh,
eu crio a
Just like
sociedade.
I create community.
É assim como eu também crio a
And I
comunidade.
create my home.
Eu crio a minha casa.
But everything,
Mas tudo,
the streets,
as ruas,
the public areas,
as áreas
the
públicas,
parks,
os parques,
the grocery stores,
na,
my food,
nas quitandas, onde eu pego minhas
the
comidas,
politics,
política,
museums,
museus,
media,
a mídia,
social media,
as redes sociais,
traditional media, newspapers,
o jornal,
everything
tudo
is society.
é sociedade.
And a society
E na sociedade,
racially prejudiced.
para ser preconceito racial,
Even if as an individual I'm not.
ser visual ou não
A
é,
society can be racially prejudiced.
a sociedade pode ser preconceito racial.
That's why we have movements, right?
É por isso que a gente
That's
tem
why we have
movimentos,
civil rights
certo?
movements.
A gente tem
We have
vários
to struggle
direitos,
against a prejudiced society.
a gente tem problemas sobre preconceito racial.
So please,
Por favor,
don't tell me when the society is not prejudiced, and it is.
não me diga que a sociedade não é preconceito racial,
You know,
mas
one of
é.
the most tragic problems in these kind of societies
Uma dos maiores problemas trágicos nesse tipo de sociedade.
is that people don't want to admit racial prejudice.
A maioria das pessoas não quer admitir preconceito racial.
We like playing games
É como jogar, nós gostamos de jogar jogos.
with racialization. We like playing games.
Racionalização.
We like pretending
Nós gostamos de
you
fingir,
know, we're like having fun
gostamos de
with
curtir
race.
com a raça.
And that's why
É por
in
isso,
these kind of societies we
esse tipo de
continue to have
sociedade,
so many problems.
temos problemas, muitos problemas.
Everybody has problems.
Porque todo mundo tem problemas.
Economic problems,
Problemas econômicos,
psychological problems,
problemas psicológicos,
social problems,
problemas sociais,
because we
porque
don't want to admit
nós não queremos
what's
admitir
really there.
o que está logo ali.
And so,
Então,
let's move on, please.
vamos continuar.
Okay, contexts. Okay.
Contextos.
We have to understand that, you see, we Americans,
Nós entendemos. Nós somos americanos,
by the way, I'm American, just in case some of you wondered.
mas você não saiba, eu sou americano, se você quiser
I'm
saber.
African American.
Eu sou
I'm a mixture of ex-slaves and indigenous people, okay? And so just in case, no, I'm not South African, I'm not Mauritian, I'm American.
Okay, para vocês deixarem bem claro, eu não sou africano, eu sou maurício, eu sou da América,
and I'm a
eu sou
proud
americano,
American.
eu sou um americano orgulhoso.
But we got a problem.
Nós temos um problema.
We Americans think we're the most different people in the world.
Nós americanos pensamos que somos as pessoas mais diferentes do mundo.
Most Brazilians think that way too.
E a maioria dos brasileiros pensa a mesma
We're the
coisa.
best. There's nobody like Brazilians. Nobody's like Brazilians.
Ninguém é
We're the
igual a
best.
brasileiros.
South Africans,
Os sul-americanos, os sul-africanos,
you know, South Africans believe the same.
os sul-africanos pensam a mesma coisa.
We're the best.
Nós somos melhores.
We call it exceptionalism.
A gente
Being
chama de
exceptional. Exceptional. Being exceptional. Exceptional. See,
excepcional.
you Ugandians don't have that problem.
Nós ugandeses não temos esse problema. That's right.
You know, but Brazilians,
Mas brasileiros,
Americans,
americanos,
South Africans,
sul-africanos,
Australians,
australianos,
French,
francês,
British,
britânicos,
Germany, all
alemães,
think that they're
todos pensam
exceptional.
são excepcionais.
Now, isn't that interesting?
O interessante,
That we can live in a world
podemos viver num
with so
mundo
many exceptional people,
onde tem pessoas excepcionais.
and what's exceptional about us is our context.
Excepção
Is our context. Our
é o nosso
context.
contexto.
It's our context.
É o contexto.
Okay. Yeah, sure. You can't say that Brazilians are like Americans because we have a
Lógico.
different historical context.
A gente não pode dizer que o brasileiro é igual ao América, mas
different
são
cultural context.
têm contextos diferentes.
We have different political, economic contexts. So
Tem
of course,
contextos
it's
políticos
not,
diferentes.
it's not fair,
Não é justo
to just say,
dizer
you're like an American.
você como um
No,
americano.
you can't do that. I can't say.
Eu não
I
posso
can't
dizer,
come here
não posso
and
vir
say
aqui.
that racism in Brazil reminds me of racism in America.
Não posso dizer que racismo aqui no Brasil me lembra racismo nos Estados Unidos.
I can't say
Eu
that.
não posso dizer
But
isso.
what I can say
Mas eu posso
is
dizer
that to the context here,
que o contexto aqui,
to the context here, where racism does exist. That there is a style of racism here.
tem um tipo de racismo aqui.
Just like there's a style of racism in America,
Como tem um tipo de racismo na América.
there's a style of racism in France,
Tem um tipo de racismo na
in
França,
in Great Britain,
na Inglaterra,
Mauritius.
Mauritius.
But the common denominator is racial prejudice.
Mas
The commonality is racial prejudice.
o comum é o preconceito racial.
But it's just that we do it differently.
Mas a gente
That's all.
fazemos
Please.
isso diferentemente.
In fact, some people may say, well, what's wrong with racial prejudice in a way?
Algumas vezes perguntamos que problema com preconceito
Well,
racial.
because it's dehumanizing.
Quando a gente
It's dehumanizing to think that you look at somebody,
humaniza. Quando a gente humaniza,
okay, it's dehumanizing.
desumaniza.
It's dehumanizing for me to look at this man,
Eu só olhar para esse cara,
and because he has certain characteristics,
que tem uma característica diferente,
and I assume certain things about him.
e eu presumo algumas coisas sobre ele.
That's dehumanizing
Esse aí.
Dehumanizing.
Sim.
against anybody.
Porque
Who
pessoa,
does that? That's
que
what
faz
race
isso?
does.
assim que
That's what race does.
Assim que racismo
You
começa.
can't look at anybody
Você não pode olhar para
and tell
alguém,
anything about them
falar sobre eles,
by what they look like.
por causa do que a aparência deles.
Whether the look is real
Nem que a aparência é
or
real
it's perceived.
ou é
Perceived. Perception.
perception.
Perception. You know, cognition.
É percepção. Essa palavra tem percepção?
You know,
Isso foi na percepção.
because you don't have to be a different color
Você não pode ter uma cor diferente
to think racially.
para pensar racialmente.
You don't have to be.
Você não tem que ser.
In Nazi Germany, in the 1930s,
Nos anos 30, na Alemanha,
German
os alemão,
Jews
os judeus
and German Gentiles,
e os alemãos
Gentiles, look the
gentios
same physically,
eram iguais fisicamente,
but one was made into a race.
mas um foi feito pela raça.
In Rwanda,
Não
it's the
importa.
same thing. The genocide that happened in Rwanda.
Em Ruanda aconteceu o
You
genocídio.
know, people who look the same,
Algumas
they were
pessoas
made in different
pareciam,
races.
algumas pessoas pareciam iguais, mas elas são de raças
Again,
diferentes.
it's the way I've been raised.
E
It's the way I've been raised.
foi dessa maneira que eu
You know, to
cresci,
see people
para ver pessoas
that don't really have any differences, but the differences are in my head.
mas não tem diferença, mas a diferença está na cabeça.
So, okay. So that's why I say that race is about perception
É por isso que eu falo, raça é sobre percepção
and cognition
e cognição.
and culture.
Na cultura,
And you see this when you move around a whole lot. You
Isso.
travel around
você viaja
outside, say,
lá
Brazil,
fora do Brasil,
outside the United States. You
fora,
travel
fora
around
dos Estados Unidos,
And
você
you
viaja ao
find
redor,
out
você descobre
how ambiguous things are.
como engrandecido as coisas são.
Because people define who they are
As pessoas
in
definem quem
different
são.
ways depending upon where they are.
Viram?
You know, they move around a whole lot.
Quando você anda ao
Now,
redor,
you find out that what I am here
o que eu estou aqui,
is not what I am in Mauritius
o que eu sou na Maurícia,
or in South Africa
o que eu sou na África do
or in
Sul,
America.
o que eu sou na América,
Okay, it's different
é muito diferente,
because it's the different context.
porque são contextos diferentes.
Okay. Okay. Next, please. Now, what causes prejudice the most is bad exposure.
O que traz preconceito é se expor mal.
Bad exposure.
O jeito que você se expor errado.
I hear about people on the news
Eu
in a bad way.
escuto as pessoas de uma maneira no jornal de uma maneira errada.
You know, it makes me think that black people are bad.
E
White
me faz
people are
pensar
bad.
que as
White
pessoas
people are
negras são ruins, as pessoas brancas são
You see,
ruins.
and so that's what basically confirms what I learned at home.
Conforme comentou em casa.
Yeah. Next, please. Openness.
Abertura.
Now we're switching a bit. Openness.
Agora, abertura.
Because most of the time we study prejudice.
A maioria das vezes aprendemos sobre preconceito.
Okay, most of our studies are done on racism.
A maioria dos nossos estudos são feitos sobre racismo.
But what are we looking on the other side?
E como é que a gente
For
vê
a
isso
few
como
minutes.
sociedade?
And see
Como alguns minutos.
how there are people here in Brazil. There are
Pessoas
people
aqui
in the
no-
United States.
Tem pessoas aqui nos
All
Estados
over the
Unidos,
world,
tem o mundo inteiro,
there are people in societies,
tem pessoas na
with
sociedade,
these multiracial societies, who are very open.
que são
people,
pessoas
opening people.
multirraciais, que são pessoas abertas.
And so, next, please. Okay, there are three integrative factors. There are three factors
Tem três fatores
in somebody's
integrativos
life
na vida de uma pessoa
and how they develop
e como desenvolve
in their homes,
nas suas
in the
casas,
communities,
na
in the
comunidade, na
society.
sociedade.
There are three integrative factors
Tem 3 fatores
that
integrativos
I've been observing,
que a
I've
gente
been
tem
testing
observado,
that seem to matter
testado,
a
e
whole
parece
lot
que
in
na
terms
vida
of
toda,
determining somebody having an opening distribution.
quando alguém
Yes,
tem uma
please.
abertura, exibição de abertura.
Now, what's interesting is that what I'm about to say about these three factors are based upon
Algo mais interessante que eu vou falar sobre esses 3 fatores.
research that is at least 75 years old. What I'm about to talk about
O que eu vou falar
openness
sobre abertura
is based upon
é
a
baseado
research
sobre
area
uma área de pesquisa
that's been around for 75 years.
em torno de 70 a 75 anos.
It's just that in most of these countries,
É sobre esses países.
policymakers have not bothered
Os políticos
to,
não estão incomodados
to utilize
para
this
perceber,
knowledge to bring about more opening societies.
para trazer para as sociedades abertas.
So please don't let anybody tell you
Por favor, não deixa que ninguém te diga.
that we don't know how to
Nós não sabemos
develop a more open Brazil
desenvolver abertura no Brasil,
or a more open USA,
ou mais aberto nos Estados
because
Unidos,
we have the knowledge
porque nós temos o
to
conhecimento
do it.
para fazê-lo.
Next, please. Okay, the first thing that we know that works
A primeira coisa que nós sabemos que funciona
about bringing about openness,
sobre abertura
thank you, is positive intergroup contact.
é contato positivo de intergrupo.
Now, isn't that simple?
Isso não é fácil.
Positive intergroup contact.
Contato positivo de intergrupo.
You know, meaning when I have contact with different kinds of people,
Isso significa quando tem contato com pessoas diferentes,
and not just verbal interaction,
não é apenas contato
not just verbal, but also nonverbal. Nonverbal. You know, my
No.
body language.
Okay, não é meu
You know, my body language, by the way, means more than my verbal.
meu jeito robô, mas meu linguajar corporal.
You know, intergroup interaction. How do I interact with people?
Como interagir com as pessoas no grupo?
How I interact with people.
Como eu interajo com as pessoas?
Different kinds of people.
Pessoas diferentes.
The more practice I have with this
Quanto mais eu pratico
in my everyday life,
na minha vida,
the more I'm prone to be open,
mais eu me torno mais aberto.
because I learned that the other person is a human being.
Eu aprendo que outra pessoa também é como ser humano.
You know, the way we learn how to be prejudiced
Quando a gente aprende como ser preconceituoso,
is we assume that people are different from us.
nós assumimos ou vemos que as pessoas são diferentes de
The
nós.
more I learn how to look at my professor
Mais que
colleague
aprende
here
a olhar para minha
as a
professora,
human being, she looks at me
quando
as a
ela
human
olha
being.
para mim,
Over time,
passando o tempo,
ao
longo do tempo,
we humanize.
nós humanizamos.
Humanize. That's right. Humanize.
Humanizamos.
If I'm so busy looking down or looking across here,
Se eu fico
I'm
olhando
never
para baixo,
looking at
olhando
her,
para o
and
atravessado,
I'm dehumanizing her.
eu estou humanizando.
Okay, I'm dehumanizing.
Isso humanizando.
People, human beings, need to be looked at.
As pessoas precisam
They
ser
need to
olhadas.
be smiled at.
A gente tem que
They
sorrir para
need to be
eles.
appreciated.
A gente tem que apreciá-los.
Okay, and they need to be looked at
Tem que
in ways
olhá-los,
which are kind and gentle,
tem que olhar
and
eles bondoso e apreciá-los.
not hostile. No, when you're prejudiced, you learn to
Quando
look
você é
at people
preconceituoso,
in a hostile way.
quando você olha para eles de uma maneira racial.
or in a way that's disgusted. You look at somebody
Você
and
olha
you're
para eles com um
disgusted.
jeito meio nojento.
Okay, so we learned for 70 years.
Durante 70
We have this
anos,
body of literature that lets us know that positive intergroup contact,
contato positivo intergrupo,
verbal and nonverbal,
o
it brings about openness
verbal,
because
não
you
verbal,
humanize. Well,
nós
we're human.
humanizamos.
Okay, and so fine. Thank you. Immersion.
Imersão,
Immersion.
imersão,
Immersion.
imersão.
And not only, we don't only find that people who interact, but people who find experiences with each other.
A gente não encontra apenas as pessoas que interagem, mas
They
a gente
spend time visiting each other in their homes.
a gente tem pessoas que interagem,
the
mas as
community.
pessoas que visitam as pessoas nas suas casas, nas comunidades.
I have this theory.
Eu tenho essa teoria,
It's called
chamado
it's called holding the baby
segurando o bebê,
and petting the dog.
e você
Holding the baby and petting the dog.
você segurando o bebê e cuidando do cachorro, acariciando o cachorro.
You know what that is? I can't really say I'm open
Não posso dizer que eu sou aberto,
unless
a não
I
ser,
have invited people into my home
quando eu convido as pessoas na minha casa
and allow them to hold my baby
e eu permitá-los a carregá-lo
and pet
Meu
my
bebê.
dog. And pet my dog.
e acariciar meu cachorro.
How many of you have invited? You only have to raise your hands.
Não
Just
precisa
think
levantar
about
sua
this.
mão.
How many of you
Quantos de
have
vocês
invited different kinds of people to your home?
que já convidaram pessoas
You know,
diferentes
for
da
dinner.
sua casa para jantar?
Sorry about that. You say, oh, I attend a nice seminar on openness.
Eu fui num
It
seminário
was
de
nice
abertura.
to attend
É legal
nice
para você
seminars
frequentar
on
seminários assim,
openness and so forth and so
de
on.
abertura.
But how many of you have invited somebody over to your home?
Quantos de vocês já chamaram alguém na sua casa?
Have you thought about that?
Pensa sobre isso.
But immersion is key.
Imersão é uma
for
chave
openness.
para abertura.
I can't be open to you
Eu não posso ser aberto para
unless
você,
I know where you live.
a não ser eu sei onde você
Yeah,
mora.
Unless I know some things about the kind of food you eat.
A não ser se eu sei as comidas que você come.
I want to be able to hold your child.
Eu gostaria de segurar seu filho.
I want my child to come over to your house sometime and play with your children.
Eu gostaria que meu filho tivesse
you know-
ir na sua casa para brincar com
That's
seu
how you
filho.
really know that progress is being made.
Aí você sabe que o progresso está sendo feito entre as pessoas.
Because anybody that can be liberal,
Porque a pessoa,
progressive, anybody can be progressive and say, oh, I'm for equality.
ninguém pode ser progressivo e
But,
falar, eu perdi.
And then I go back home
Quando eu volto para
to my
casa,
segregated. I go back to my segregated home. My segregated home. I go to my segregated home when I'm finished saying, you're my friend.
eu não posso voltar para casa e dizer que você é meu amigo.
Okay, I'm your friend.
Eu sou
You're my
seu
friend.
amigo, você é
But
meu
I never
amigo.
invite you over to my house.
Mas eu não te chamo na minha casa.
So immersion
Imagina,
is very important.
uma imersão é muito
We
importante.
have all kinds of studies
Nós temos todo tipo de estudos
about in America about why Vietnam War. Why Vietnam?
Nós temos todo tipo de estudos sobre a guerra da Vietnã.
All war is tragic.
Porque guerra é trágico.
But what was interesting about the Vietnam War
Mas o que era interessante sobre a guerra da Vietnã
is that it was the first racially integrated war.
era uma primeira guerra de
It was the first
racial
war
integrada,
That whites, blacks, Asians all fought together.
onde tinha negros, brancos e asiáticos lutando juntos.
And so it was the first war like that.
E a primeira guerra assim.
Have you ever been in a situation
Você já esteve numa situação
where somebody had to protect you?
onde alguém tinha que te proteger?
You know, in an extreme area, or even do something
Num
very
momento extremo.
important for you,
Ou alguém fizesse alguma coisa muito importante para você,
like in an emergency room.
como na sala de emergência.
You're having a heart attack.
Você está tendo um
You're having a heart attack,
ataque cardíaco.
and you go to an emergency room,
Você vai na sala de emergência.
and you're in no condition, are you?
Você não
You're
sabe
in
nem.
no condition
Você está sem
to what
condições.
kind of doctor you want. All you want is a doctor that's going to save your life.
O que você quer é que o doutor salve a sua vida.
You see, these are examples of immersion, by the way.
Esses aí são exemplos de
You
imersão.
know, if you're in a war situation,
Se você estiver numa situação de
you
guerra,
don't care what color somebody is protecting you.
você não se preocupa que tipo de cor da pessoa é para te proteger.
Okay, you want that person to save your life.
Você quer uma pessoa que salve a sua vida.
The same thing in the hospital
É a mesma coisa no hospital,
and in the emergency room.
na sala de
You
emergência.
know, you don't really care what color the doctor is.
Você não se preocupa que cor o doutor é.
You know, even your relatives who could be racist
Até
in the
seus,
emergency room with you.
até seus parentes ou seus podem ser
And the
racistas.
doctor is not the right color.
E o doutor pode não ser a cor
Are you
perfeita.
going to say, oh, I don't want that doctor to operate?
Você vai dizer, não quero esse doutor me operar.
I don't think so.
Não acho que
And
sim.
so this is why what immersion does is we allow our hearts to be touched.
Esse que a imersão faz, ele permite que nossos corações sejam tocados.
We begin to see people
Começamos a ver
as
pessoas
they really are as human beings.
como eles são os seres humanos.
Next, please. And not only intergroup contact and not only immersion, but
Não é
we
só
have to
no
also do
contato-
things together,
Não é só no contato pessoal, no
doing
imersão.
things together,
Temos que fazer as coisas juntos,
like building a community together,
como construir uma comunidade juntos.
even doing our homework together
A gente pode fazer nossas
in
lições
a college
juntos,
situation.
na escola, na faculdade.
Where you find that when you do things together,
Você faz as coisas
people
juntos.
sort out themselves by competencies. You may find out that the smartest person
Você pode encontrar que a
In your
melhor
study
pessoa,
group,
no seu grupo de estudo,
is not of your ethnicity.
não é,
It's not of your ethnicity. It might be a different person from a different nationality.
ele pode ser uma pessoa de uma nacionalidade
Okay? But that
diferente.
person is the person that's going to lead the study group to get an A
Tal-
on the test.
Talvez ele vai te liderar para você conseguir um A na prova,
So doing things together,
mas fazendo as
it
coisas
gets us
juntos,
away from prejudices, from stereotypes,
essa aí é um jeito
and you
de sair
start
de
focusing
preconceito.
on competencies. Okay, so these three things,
Essas três coisas.
you put them together,
Quando você junta
intergroup contact,
entre contato de
immersion,
imersão
and also doing things together.
e fazendo as coisas juntos,
When you have these three activities in motion,
nós temos essas três coisas de atividade e emoção.
people begin to open.
As pessoas começam a se abrir,
They begin to embrace each other.
começam a abraçar os outros.
And I've seen this in any society, all the societies I've lived in.
Em todas as sociedades ou sociedades que eu
People
vivi,
who are opening,
pessoas
they
que
all
estão se
have these same
abrindo,
qualities.
Eles
They've
têm a
had
mesma
experiences with intergroup,
eles têm a
Contact
mesma qualidade,
with immersion, and also doing things together with different kinds of people.
eles têm as
Now,
três
there's one other
qualidades.
thing that matters a whole lot.
Mas uma das
openness.
coisas,
That's travel.
uma das coisas que importa em toda a vida é viajar.
Not necessarily to another country,
Não é necessário para
but
outro
maybe
país,
to another part of a country.
talvez outra parte do país.
And just living in contexts away from where I'm from originally.
Deixando o contexto da onde eu sou originalmente.
And by the way, that's why having the opportunity to go away to college
É por isso que nós temos oportunidade para ir para a faculdade.
It's so important because it gets you out of the contexts
Ele
of
te,
where you're
colo-
from
ele te tira daqueles contextos de onde você é
and gets you into a new community.
e te coloca numa nova
But
comunidade.
especially when you do have the resources to travel to other countries.
Você tem que
I
ter
mean, you find that the more you do this,
quando você tem
the more you begin to really understand something that sounds repetitious, but it's true. People are people.
onde você tem que ter contexto para poder viajar e ter dinheiro para poder viajar. Você vai entender que é verdade que as pessoas são pessoas.
Yeah, some people who are wonderful.
Algumas pessoas são maravilhosas.
Yeah, some people who are jerks.
E são pessoas que são invejosas.
Irrespective of what they look like. You know, the world is not a perfect place.
O mundo não é um lugar
Not by a
perfeito.
long shot. But the more you travel,
Mas quanto
and
mais
the more
você
you see
viajar,
this,
quanto mais você vê
especially in
isso,
this day and age, the more you realize
assim que você percebe
the value of embracing others.
o valor de abraçar os
Based upon
outros
who they are,
Quem
not
são?
what they look like.
e como eles parecem.
Okay, so very quickly,
Mas rapidamente,
let me go through these commonalities
deixa eu ir nessas
and these kind of societies that we're talking about. Next, please.
comunidades.
Yeah, commonalities. Yeah, commonalities, being common, in common. You know, these societies we're talking about, these societies we're talking about,
Essas sociedades que estamos
you know,
falando,
all have common qualities.
todos têm as qualidades comuns.
Right, okay? White over black.
O branco sobre o negro.
Okay, this is the name of a famous book too.
Esse aqui é um livro famoso.
Okay, these societies,
Essas
the
sociedades,
assumption is that whiteness is over blackness. Go on, please.
quando o branco sobre o
Next, please.
negro.
Black, this was a fancy word. Let me say it another way.
Esse é um jeito ofensivo. Deixa eu dizer outro jeito.
Black people have temporary status.
Pessoas negras têm estudos temporários.
Okay. This is actually the name of a book. It's called Black and White Space.
Esse aqui é o nome de um livro. Preto no espaço branco.
You know, by Elijah Anderson. Elijah Anderson is a famous
Elijah Anderson.
African American sociologist.
Ele é um sociologista
At Yale University.
americano negro.
And what he says is that
O que ele diz?
in the United States,
Nos Estados Unidos,
no matter your status,
não importa seus estudos,
if you got black skin,
se você tem uma pele negra,
you are always not trusted.
você nunca é confiável.
So you're always temporary.
Você sempre é temporário.
And my perspective is
Meu perspectivo é,
Brazil's like this,
Brasil é assim,
South Africa's like this,
África do Sul é assim,
Great Britain's like this.
na Inglaterra
Great
é
Britain, so
assim.
if you're black skin,
Se você tem uma pele negra,
you're not trusted.
você não é confiável.
Or you're trusted temporarily.
Você é confiável temporariamente.
You can be in a white setting
Você pode ter,
and be trusted.
se você
And then
é
a new white
branco,
person, then a new white person comes in.
e quando entra uma
And
pessoa
it all
branca,
starts again. You have to prove yourself.
você tem que se provar.
Okay. And so, being temporary,
Sendo temporário,
irrespective of your status, you can be a Supreme Court justice.
não importa seu estudo, você pode ser
A Supreme Court justice.
Supreme Court. Supreme Court.
Yeah, Supreme Court justice. You can be a black Supreme Court justice.
Você pode ser o Suprema Corte.
Yeah, Supreme Court justice. You can be a black.
Juiz de Suprema Corte.
Right, there you go. You can be a black Supreme Court justice.
Você pode ser um negro Supremo
Juiz negro.
Juiz negro do Supremo Corte.
Right? And somebody can still mistake you for the janitor.
Alguém pode
And somebody can still think you're the janitor.
E alguém pode pensar que você é apenas what? Zelador.
You can still
E alguém,
be mistaken for the janitor.
alguém pode pensar que você é um zelador. Confunde com um zelador.
Yeah. And by the way, this actually happened here
Isso aqui aconteceu
No
aqui
Brasil.
no Brasil.
To your black Supreme Court justice a few years ago,
Um juiz, uns anos atrás,
who was mistaken for being the elevator operator.
que
You know,
confundido de ser um operador
people made demands
de
on him to
de-
press a button
confundido para ser
in
um
the elevator.
operador de elevador.
I mean, because how can you possibly be
Você possivelmente
a
pode
Supreme
ser
Court?
um juiz
Justice.
do Supremo.
You know, you're there in the elevator, so you
Você
are
está
there
no elevador,
even in a suit.
talvez
But
no terno.
no, I mean, you must be the elevator operator.
Ah, mas você é um operador de
So-
elevador.
Okay, and so this is common in these kind of societies.
É comum nesse
even
tipo de
myself.
sociedade. Até eu mesmo.
Even myself, irrespective of how I dress, whatever.
Algumas vezes
I've been
eu me
even
confundo
here.
do jeito que eu me visto.
But in my own country, Mauritius,
No meu próprio país, lá no March.
you know, there's the assumption that I'm black, so I can't be a professor.
Por eu ser negro, não posso ser
No,
professor.
that's impossible. I must. Maybe
Impossível.
professor is a nickname.
Talvez professor seja um apelido.
Okay. Next, please. No matter violence. All of these societies we're talking about,
Motivo de violência.
irrespective of the context, are violent.
Tudo é violência.
You know, anti-police violence in favelas is what we usually think about. You know, anti-police, you know, the anti-favela violence in favelas, right?
Yes, in the slum.
Right. Yeah. But I'm not just talking about this. I'm talking about everyday violence.
Sobre a violência
I'm
nas
talking
favelas.
I'm talking about these societies are everyday violence
Essas são violência diária.
based upon skin color.
Eles pensam sobre a cor da
Yeah,
pele.
people yell at you,
As pessoas gritam com você,
they shout at you
eles gritam com
every
você
day.
todos os dias.
Every day. People look at you in a bad way,
As pessoas te olham de uma maneira
negative
errada,
way.
num jeito negativo,
in an arrogant way.
do jeito arrogante.
These are forms of violence.
Isso é uma
We're talking
violência.
about sociological psychology here, right? I mean, it does something violent to you
É uma coisa violenta a você.
if people are looking at you
As pessoas estão olhando para você
in a bad way,
de uma maneira
violence.
errada. Isso é violência.
or looking at you in a scared way.
Olhando para você de uma maneira
You know,
assustadora.
you're a black male going
Você-
into the elevator.
Você é um homem negro entrando num elevador.
Everybody's scared at you.
E todo mundo
Look,
fica
you're scared.
assustado.
Oh, you're going to take my purse,
Ah, você vai roubar minha bolsa.
right? That's violence.
Isso é violência.
We're talking about mental health, right? Mental
A
health.
gente está falando sobre
There's
saúde
something
mental.
about mental health
Trabalhando na minha saúde
as a
mental.
black male.
Como um homem
To
negro,
know that I have to walk into an elevator a certain way,
eu sei que quando tem que entrar num elevador de uma maneira diferente,
and I better not say certain things to certain women
eu não devo dizer algumas coisas para algumas mulheres.
because some women have a rape complex.
Eles vão,
Oh, he's a black man.
Eles vão
He
falar,
wants to try to rape me,
ele é um negro, ele quer me estuprar
right? Elevator.
dentro do elevador.
And so and as old and skinny as I am,
Mesmo assim, do jeito que eu sou.
I think I'm going to rape you.
Você acha que eu vou, magro, do jeito
No,
que eu sou, vou te estuprar?
that's a big problem
Isso é um grande
in these
problema
societies,
na sociedade.
okay? Or black women
Mulheres negras
being stereotyped as being prostitutes.
Vejo,
Being
parece
prostitutes.
ser prostitutas.
I have a psychologist friend, actually. She's a professor of psychology.
Tem uma
Em Mauritius.
socióloga em
She's a
Mauritius.
black Mauritius psychologist.
Ela é uma negra
A psychologist.
socióloga.
Psychologist. That's okay. You're doing fine. And so Sometimes she's afraid to go to restaurants
Algumas vezes ela se assusta aí no restaurante
with white men
com homens brancos,
because the assumption is she's a prostitute.
porque acha que ela é prostituta.
That's how these societies are built.
Assim que a sociedade é
That's what I'm trying to
construída.
say. And even here, I have white women, professional friends,
Eu tenho mulheres brancas, meus amigos,
who are afraid to go to the airport with me.
que têm medo de ir no aeroporto
Stand in
comigo,
line because they're told, well, she must be a prostitute with him.
pode ser prostituta com ele.
Now, isn't that terrible?
Isso não é terrível?
But it's the way these societies, they deal with violence.
Assim que a sociedade lidar com violência.
Emotional violence against the body,
É.
racialized body. They do violence.
Emocionalmente contra o corpo. Violência emocional.
Okay, now I'm going to go on. Next, please. Next. 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 Okay. What I just passed through is the limitations of anti-racism.
O que eu acabei de passar
Uh,
são limitações de
now you're beginning to
racismo.
understand.
Agora você começa a entender.
I hope you're understanding
Espero que você esteja entendendo
how deep this stuff is.
como profundo essas coisas são. É muito profundo.
And so often,
Então,
we
frequentemente,
like to think that
você a gente pensa que
we're progressive,
nós estamos progredindo,
which is nice,
que é legal,
but
mas
it's more than being nice.
do que ser legal. Mais
We
do que
have
ser
to
legal.
become much more reflective
A gente tem que ser mais refletivos
about our need to change our values
Preciso mudar os
and
valores
our core identity.
e identidade de cor.
In theological terms, in theology,
Em psicologia,
the
em
the
termo
core
psicológico,
identity we have is our heart.
esse-
Our heart.
o coração,
Our heart. Okay. Changing in these societies
mudando as sociedades.
means we have to change our core identities.
Nós temos que mudar a nossa identidade de cor.
We have to change who we are.
Nós temos que mudar quem somos.
Next, please. And what this means is going beyond tolerance. Going beyond. We
E-
can't just be tolerant.
Nós não podemos ser
We have to learn how
tolerantes.
to embrace
Nós temos que
each
abraçar
other.
uns aos outros.
This is how we rehumanize.
A sociedade vai ser humanizar.
We come to
Humanizar.
routinize this.
A gente não pode enraizá-los.
The reason being is that, next please, these kind of societies,
Esse tipo de sociedades
which I've learned through doing my ethnographic work.
que eu tenho aprendido
by
no
the
meu
way,
trabalho.
Go on, next please. We're all part of this. We're all part of how we dehumanize each other.
Nós somos tudo parte disso, como a gente
You know, some
humanizamos os outros.
prejudices. I hope you realize now that
Sim.
nobody escapes
Ninguém escapa
prejudices.
preconceito.
What matters is
O que importa é
now how do we get rid of them?
como é que a gente lidar com isso.
And very quickly is a
E
matter
rapidamente,
of understanding there
a
are
gente
two
entende.
there are two populations
Temos
in
dois
these kind of
tipos,
societies.
dois tipos de população nesse tipo.
The perpetrating
Sociedades.
the dominant perpetrating
Aqueles que,
populations,
a população dominante
and there's the victim population.
e temos a população vítima.
The perpetrating populations are the populations that created the society,
Essa população é criada pela sociedade.
that own the society.
Estamos sobre a sociedade.
Okay, white people.
Pessoas
In this case, we're
brancas,
talking about.
que estou falando.
But you can have other kinds of multiracial societies where people are not white.
Podemos ter outro tipo de
By the
multi sociedade que
You know,
não
but
são
we're talking
brancos.
about these kinds of societies
Estamos falando sobre esse
that
tipo de
were
sociedades.
slave-based societies. Okay, and so the perpetrating populations are the white populations.
A população dominante
It's like
são
an
os
It's an
brancos.
ancestry.
ancestrais.
And the victim populations
E a população
are
vítima
the African descendant populations.
são descendentes africanos.
In terms of skin color, the skin color is what matters here,
A cor da pele é o que importa aqui.
but it matters depending upon the society you're in.
Não importa o
In
tipo de
this
sociedade que você
country,
está.
Skin color means something much more different.
Nesse
it does in the
aspecto,
United
a
States.
cor da pele significa
Or-
alguma coisa diferente.
Or Brazil.
No Brasil,
But what matters is having at least a tinge of
No-
off-whiteness.
no Brasil, o que importa é que
In
você tem um
other words-
pouquinho de
In
branquitude.
other words, in these
Branquitude.
societies, whiteness
O que importa é branquitude,
is a privilege.
é privilégio.
And then if you have a tinge of brownish,
Se você tem um pouquinho de
then you
marronzado,
lose status.
então você perde o
You keep losing status until
status.
your skin color is black.
Sorry?
Until your skin color is black.
Quando a sua pele é preta,
And
negra,
so the way it works here
do jeito que funciona
is
aqui,
not the way it works in America,
não é o jeito que funciona nos Estados Unidos,
or in South Africa, or
não na África do
Mauritius,
Sul, ou no
but it
Maurício.
works.
Não é assim que funciona.
Okay, and so this is why blackness has so much negativity
É por isso
in
que,
these societies, and whiteness has the privilege.
quando é negro você tem menos privilégios e branquitude tem mais privilégios.
So how do we get rid of all this?
Como é que a gente se livra
Next,
disso?
please. Okay, there are some ways to deal with this
Tem uma maneira para
Matter.
lidar com isso.
in terms of having difficult, very difficult, transparent conversations.
A gente tem conversas muito difíceis.
This is where authenticity comes in.
Assim,
Authenticity. Being genuine, does that work? Being authentic.
autenticidade.
Okay.
Autêntico.
And my argument is that,
Meu
thank you
discurso
very
é
much, homes, communities, universities,
casas, comunidades,
you have
faculdades.
to have these difficult conversations.
Tem que ter esse tipo de conversas difíceis.
Between people who come from perpetrating populations
Que pessoas que vêm de populações
and victim populations.
de comunidade competitiva e de vítimas.
They have to be authentic, difficult conversations.
Tem que ser autêntico, conversas autênticas.
Nobody likes talking about racism
Ninguém gosta de falar sobre racismo
or racialization.
ou
But nobody likes
racionalização.
talking about it.
Ninguém gosta de
I
falar
mean, that's
sobre
why
isso.
people avoid it.
É por isso que as pessoas evitam,
They water it down.
eles abaixam,
They change the subject.
mudam de
But if we're
assunto.
going to talk about having societies that are healthy,
Quando eu vou falar sobre
we have to deal with these very difficult,
a gente vai falar sobre ter sociedade
transparent conversations
ricas, a gente tem que ter esses
where
tipos
we
de
listen,
conversas
where we
difíceis.
listen for the first time
Quando a gente escuta pela primeira
to
vez,
each other.
de uns
For the
aos
first
outros.
time, we listen to each other.
Quando a gente escuta
For
uns
the
aos
first
outros.
time, we hear each other.
Quando a gente escuta uns aos outros.
For the first time, we don't interrupt each other.
Primeira vez que a gente nem tem
Out of
uns aos
anger,
outros.
To discuss. We listen to each other.
A gente não tem raiva. A gente
We even
não é-
watch our body language. We watch our body language. We don't sit like this.
A gente aprende
We sit like this.
linguagem corporal. A gente não senta assim,
We
sentamos
sit
assim.
like this if we're talking to each other.
Quando a gente falamos uns aos outros.
Because sitting like this
Quando a gente
is
fica
I'm
sentado
defending
assim,
myself
estou me
from
defendendo.
being attacked. But in
Estou sendo
the
atacado.
process,
Mas nesse
whatever it
processo,
is, I learn how to sit up
eu aprendo como
and I
sentar.
learn how to look at people in the eye.
Eu aprendo a olhar para as
And
pessoas
I
nos
learned to
olhos.
have sometimes the first conversations of my life.
E algumas vezes aprende a ter a primeira
Yeah,
conversa
these are
da
very
minha vida.
Painful
Algumas vezes é doloroso.
conversations.
Conversas dolorosas.
Very, very difficult. And what do I talk about?
que a gente
Everybody
vai falar?
takes a turn. They talk about remembering.
A gente fala sobre lembranças.
What happened?
O que aconteceu?
What happened?
O que aconteceu?
Everybody has a story
Todo mundo tem uma história.
about what happened.
O que aconteceu?
Perpetrators, people in perpetrating populations have a
Populadores,
story.
eles têm uma história.
Victims have a story. But what
Vítimas
happened?
também têm histórias. O que aconteceu?
Even if the story is, I don't know what happened.
Nem que a história sabe. Não sei o que aconteceu.
Dominant people like to say, I wasn't there.
Pessoas dominantes gostam de dizer.
Maybe my great-grandfather
Talvez meu
owned
avô,
slaves, but I wasn't there.
eles tinham escravos, mas eu não estava lá.
Or somebody from a slave background might say, well, I don't know, I'm just trying to make it every day. I don't know anything about where I'm from.
Algumas pessoas falam, nem sei de onde eu
Or
sou.
some people have some real stories. They
Algumas
remember,
pessoas têm
they've
histórias
been
de
reading,
verdade.
they've been talking, and so they tell their story.
Algumas pessoas
What-
contam
remembering.
histórias.
That's why we have museums, right? Too, by the way. We have museums to help remembering.
É por isso que a gente tem museais, que são
remembering
de
history.
verdade. Lembrar a
Confession.
história.
It's important.
Confessão.
I mean, we have to confess to each other.
Temos que conversar com uns aos outros
But what happened?
sobre o que aconteceu.
Confession means accountability.
Confessão significa algum tipo de habilidade.
That we heard each other's stories, and then we say, okay.
Umas vezes escutamos histórias
That's what confession is. Okay.
Essa confessão
Okay.
diz, ok?
I take account. I take accountability for what happened.
Toma alguma habilidade do que aconteceu.
I don't agree with it, but I take accountability of it.
Eu
It
levo
really
a conta
happened.
de habilidade do que aconteceu.
Slavery really happened.
Escravidão aconteceu.
What
Slavery.
happened? What happened to my great-grandmother, great-grandfather?
O que aconteceu com
Really
meu
happened.
avô, com minha avó, realmente aconteceu.
Accountability.
Que tipo de habilidade?
Okay. And repentance.
Arrependimento.
After we remember, and we go through all that, it's very
Depois de
difficult to
lembrar,
remember
a gente vai,
and
através
to
disso,
admit and be
admitimos.
accountable. And then I repent.
Me arrependo.
And in restorative justice, we talk about apologizing. Oh, I'm
Não é
sorry.
só falar sobre perdão. Me desculpe.
Repentance is more deeper.
Arrependimento é mais profundo.
What repentance means
O que arrependimento diz?
is I covenant with you.
Então,
I promise you.
Eu tenho
with my life.
uma aliança com você.
I promise you with my life.
Eu prometo
It's
você com a
never
minha
going to happen
vida.
again.
Nunca mais vai acontecer.
People who come from dominant groups,
Pessoas que
They
vêm de
say,
grupos
I
dominantes.
promise I will never enslave you. I will never discriminate against you.
Pessoas que vêm de grupo dominante dizem: eu nunca vou te escravizar.
Victim populations say,
A população
I'm never
vítima
going to allow you to do this to me.
dizem: nunca vou permitir que você faça isso comigo.
It's not a matter of you never enslaving me again. I'm not going to let you do it.
Não vou deixar que você me escravize, mas não vou deixar que você faça isso de novo.
That's what repentance is.
Isso que arrependimento
That's
diz.
what civil rights movements are about. Civil rights movements are movements
Esses
where victim
movimentos,
people finally say, I'm never going to be oppressed like this again.
esse movimento civilizado que diz: nunca mais vou fazer isso de novo.
Okay, next, please. Forgiveness.
Perdão.
Okay, and again, we're talking about these conversations
Estão falando sobre essas conversas
that we can have in these societies,
que nós podemos ter
in
na
our
sociedade,
communities, in our universities.
nas comunidades, nas
Talk about
universidades,
degree requirements, universities even.
nas
We have to
faculdades.
go through these.
Nós temos que passar sobre isso.
Difficult conversations. Forgiveness.
Conversas
Everybody wants to say
difíceis.
about
Perdão.
forgiveness. I forgive you.
Eu te
I love
perdoo.
you.
Eu te amo.
Let's forget it.
Vamos esquecer.
That's not what forgiveness is.
Isso não é só o que perdão é.
Forgiveness means
Perdão
I
diz:
understand
eu entendo.
you.
Eu te entendo.
I may not agree with you.
Eu posso não concordar
I
com
may
você.
even like you.
Posso
but
nem gostar de
I-
você.
I understand your viewpoint.
Mas eu entendo seu ponto.
I understand why you were a slave
Eu entendo
trader. I understand that.
porque você era comprador de escravos. Eu entendo isso.
I understand that you are a slave,
Eu entendo que você era escravo ou não.
but we understand each other.
Nós entendemos uns aos outros.
Sometimes we even coexist. We coexist,
A gente
We exist together.
chamamos alguma coisa que não existe.
understanding each other.
Nós
Understanding each other.
entendemos uns dos outros.
We come together,
Nós viemos juntos,
okay? We go
Nos
through this
reunimos.
process,
passamos nesse processo
and we don't agree,
e nós não concordamos.
but we live together,
Nós nos vivemos juntos.
okay? To make sure we have the same medical services,
Podemos ter
the
o
same
mesmo tipo
schools,
de
the
serviço
same
médico, mesmas escolas,
public services.
serviços
But
públicos.
you live over here, I live over there, but we live in peace.
Nós vivemos em paz.
Reconciliation.
Reconciliação.
Okay, we agree to disagree. We understand each other.
Nós entendemos
We
uns aos
understand each
outros.
other's histories.
Entendemos a história dos outros.
And so then what it means is that
Quer dizer,
we give each other
damos uns aos outros
back
de volta
what's mine.
o que é meu.
That's what reconciliation is.
O que é isso que reconciliação é?
And at least reparations. Reparations is when
Reparações,
I give back,
do de volta.
I resolve,
Eu resolvo,
I heal,
eu curo,
because I realize that I took things
porque eu percebo que eu levo as
which
coisas
were not mine.
que não são meus.
Now, let's say this. Usually we talk about these
Geralmente
matters
falamos sobre
about victim rights.
o direito,
Victim rights, forgiveness, reconciliation.
o direito das
reparation.
vítimas.
But keep in mind, I'm also talking about perpetrators, perpetrating population.
São donos
Let
de...
me-
Second. Please, can you come back? You talk about victim.
Victims, okay, we're talking about all this, we're talking about from the very beginning, remembering,
Lembranças,
we talk about confession, we
profissões,
talk about repentance, we
arrependimento,
talk about forgiveness,
arrependimento, perdão,
reconciliation,
reconciliação,
reparation.
reparação.
Now, the way usually we talk about these things is for
A maneira que a gente
it's for
fala
victim rights.
é o direito das vítimas.
But keep in mind
Mas mantenha na sua
that
mente,
perpetrators are human beings too. Perpetrators, white people are human beings too. White people belong
O que significa
to
perpetrator?
Brazil too. Listen to me.
I would like to guess one more.
Listen to me. I said white people
Pessoas brancas
are citizens of Brazil too.
são cidadãos do Brasil também.
White people are citizens of America too.
Os brancos também são cidadãos da América também.
Can you get me?
Yep.
Everybody understand me?
Entende?
We're all people.
As
We're
pessoas
all
do mundo.
people.
Somos todos
We're all
pessoas.
people.
Somos todos
We're all
pessoas.
people.
Somos todos pessoas.
We all are. And so we have to make sure that everybody is restored
Temos que ter certeza que todo mundo tem uma história
to humanity.
para a humanidade.
There's a lot of white people
Tem muitas pessoas
who need to be
brancas
restored like black people.
são restaurados como negros.
White people lose a whole lot
As pessoas brancas perdem muito
in structuring racist societies.
estruturando.
Racism is a very destructive, a very wasteful way of organizing a society.
Sorry?
Sure. Racism
Racismo
is a very wasteful,
é um jeito
very destructive
distrativo,
way of organizing a society.
jeito de organizar a sociedade.
Everybody loses
Todo mundo perde
in the racist society.
numa sociedade racista.
It's not just the victim population.
Não é só os vítimos
Everybody loses.
de população vítima. Todo mundo perde.
If you're white,
Se você é branco,
If you're white in societies like this,
se você é branco numa sociedade como essa,
it's bad for your mental health.
é muito ruim para a sua saúde mental.
It's bad for your ability
É ruim para a sua
to
habilidade
operate in the world.
de operar no mundo.
Because the world is no longer all white.
Porque o mundo não é apenas tudo branco.
And so this is something for everybody.
Isso aqui é para
We're
todo
talking
mundo.
about sharing stories and
Estão falando sobre
confessing and forgiveness, repentance. It's for everybody.
isso aí para todo mundo.
You know,
Arrependimento, reconciliação.
You know, nobody has a monopoly on pain.
Ninguém tem
And
monopólio sobre sofrimento.
In these kind of societies, everybody suffers.
Nesse tipo de sociedade, todo mundo sofre.
Everybody is dehumanized.
Todo mundo é
And so
desumanizado.
this is the reason why,
Esse é o motivo por quê.
you know, this is such a
Esse aqui é um processo difícil.
to get everybody to understand
Todo mundo entende.
that we're all in the same boat,
Estamos todos no mesmo barco
a dehumanization.
de desumanização.
You know, we all suffer.
Todos nós
Okay,
sofremos.
so what? The last thing about this process is unity.
A última coisa sobre
You know, when I go through
esse último processo é unidade.
these difficult
Passando
processes,
esses processos difíceis,
what we want to be the ending point is
Talvez-
unity.
o último ponto é unidade.
Is
A união.
redeveloping people
Desenvolvendo pessoas
in such a way
de uma maneira social,
that they view other human beings. They view other human beings.
a visão do ser humano,
They view other human beings.
a visão do ser humano,
They don't view others. Okay? And so this is what my message is today.
essa é a minha mensagem hoje.
I took you through a very long journey.
Eu te levei numa jornada
You know,
comprida,
just for you to understand the complexity of this matter.
só para você entender a complexidade desse assunto.
Because we tend to be superficial.
Nós fingimos ser superficiais,
But I wanted to take you deep.
mas eu queria te levar profundo.
And there'll be other times in which, while I'm here, we
Vai
can
ter
have conversations.
Vai ter tempo que eu vou estar por aqui, a gente vai ter essa conversa
more specific
mais.
conversations. But I just wanted to lay this out
Mas eu só queria soltar isso
about what multicultural restorative justice is,
para você saber o que justiça multicultural é.
and why
E por que
societies like ours
sociedades como nossos
need to rethink,
tem que repensar
much.
muito.
not only in terms of government policies,
No termo de
but also
políticas
how we
governamentais
structure universities.
e como nós
What we
estruturamos
do in
faculdades,
universities,
o que fazemos nas faculdades,
in terms of how we teach and learn, how we do our research,
como é que a gente faz nas
what do we do our
públicas,
research
como é
on,
que a gente fazemos nossas pesquisas,
and how to lead society
como lidar com a
instead
sociedade,
of being behind society.
em vez de estar atrás da sociedade.
So thank you very much.
Então, muito obrigado.
And thank him very much. He did a great job. Do we have time for questions?
Pessoal, a gente tem um pouquinho de tempo para quem quiser fazer algum comentário, alguma pergunta para o professor João. Vou fazer em inglês e aí faço em português, tá? I think last time you've been here was 2015, so we came back 7 years later. I would like to know your impressions about Brazil, especially the president here. Perguntei a ele que faz 7 anos que ele veio ao Brasil, né, da última vez, se ele percebeu alguma diferença no nosso país relacionado a essa
Well, um, the one thing that I'm glad
Uma das coisas que sou feliz para ver,
hasn't changed
não mudou
as much as I thought it would
como eu pensei que deveria ter. Sim.
is the I don't know. I guess you could say it's the sense of resilience. Resilience.
É o senso
the
do
word that
brasileiro.
The resilience.
O senso. Hã?
Okay. Resilience. Yeah, how do you say it? How do you say it?
Resiliência.
Resilience.
Resiliência.
Okay. Because when you look at the the last 30 years history of Brazil, it's been pretty tough here.
Tem sido difícil
moving
aqui,
from a dictatorship,
saindo da
military
ditadura
dictatorship sort of democracy to
para a democracia,
becoming a democracy.
se tornando uma
It has not
democracia,
been easy here.
não
at all.
acontece facilmente.
And when I came here,
Quando eu vim aqui,
initially in 2008, it was in the midst of the Lula
no 2008, no início da
and
administração
there
Lula,
was some incredible things going on here
eram umas
in the
coisas
country
incríveis acontecendo aqui.
in terms of
no país.
openness and the like. And in fact, I remember even meeting then President Lula
Eu lembro de
once at a
encontrar
reception.
com Lula,
And I went up to him afterwards.
fui até ele depois,
And he knew me from no one. And I went up to shake his hand.
quando eu fui pegar na mão dele,
President Lula, so nice to meet you. He hugged me.
eu falei, presidente Lula, prazer em te conhecer, ele me abraçou.
And that stayed with me about the kind of country that Brazil was changing into. And
Esse era o tipo de país que eu estava acreditando que eu
I was
estava
a-
mudando.
I was a Fulbrighter, and in fact, I came here at the same time that then Senator Barack Obama
Eu vim na mesma época,
the
quando
nomination, and
tempo do Barack
flew
Obama.
around the country. People were so excited about Obama and meeting
Quando eu
Obama,
viajei, eu vi que pessoas estavam
Not
felizes
only-
com Obama.
not only for America but for Brazil, and so it was a very, very exciting time
Era uma época muito
of
interessante
openness. I was
de
having
abertura.
all kinds of conversations,
Aquele tipo
about
de
partnerships,
conversa, de
of various kinds,
parceirismo,
working with
trabalhando com
Afro-Brazilian and favela youth.
afro-brasileiros.
And so it was exhilarating. And then, of course, you had the impeachment of his successor.
Aí tivemos o impeachment do
And
seu
then,
sucessor.
6 years, Bolsonaro as a right winger.
Depois veio
And
do partido direita.
I was extremely worried.
Eu fiquei
As much
preocupado.
as, of course, people here were worried.
Como as
working
pessoas
citizens,
ficaram
but as an
preocupadas aqui.
outsider, I was extremely, extremely worried about this country.
Como uma pessoa de fora, o
About,
estrangeiro está preocupado com
whether
esse
or
país.
The social emotional backbone of this country would be broken.
E como ia ser quebrado
I mean, just-
emocionalmente.
In terms of the, sort of perspective that regime had.
Tipo de
About
expectativas
austerity and
sobre prosperidade,
about academics and getting away with
sobre acadêmico e
doing
como
away
que ia
with
lidar com
scientific
isso.
funding and all that kind of good stuff, and rolling back
Voltando para trás,
Afro-Brazilian achievements in such a short length of time. I mean, because you look at it, and again, Brazil had just come out of military dictatorship, back in the 30s, and then just have this happen as it happened, as it did for the last 6 years. And now if you have Lula coming back, it's a whole lot of stuff. And So I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, to see that the social emotional backbone of people here was not destroyed. The people here still have hope, and it's based upon that hope that now you have a new president coming in who can rebuild on that hope. But it's going to have to take mobilization. I mean, I know people have been exhausted with what happened here. But Lula is 76 years old. It's not a spring chicken. And so my concern is, well, okay, the resilience is there. The backbone has not been broken. University leadership has done the necessary things to protect the integrity of universities. Something, by the way, which is similar to what happened with Donald Trump. You know, the one area that Trump could not break was higher education. When he tried, he found himself confronted with MIT and Harvard and University of California coming together and say, come and get us. We're going to sue your butts for the government if you try to come after us and destroy what we are about. You're back right now. I don't know what happened here, but just to see that, say, USB, you're here, you're trying to do things in itself is say something about the incredible work that has been done over the decades to make this university sector as it is. Now, I have noticed that, though, that you know, wherever the right wing has made its inroads, it's done a lot of damage. On the other hand, you know, and so those who are, yeah, and so I don't see, I didn't notice the street level, say, racial prejudices occurring that much, and that wasn't real even here. But what I've noticed is that the infrastructures are gone. And that's what this last administration, this present administration is about. You know, they've been very good about dismantling. And so, I'm curious now, since I'm here, in terms of finding out what's the game plan to advocate for the rebuilding of what begun about 10 years ago here. About working in favelas and also having these tremendous science programs. I mean, I remember there was a science program through the Department of Science here that was sent about 5,000 Brazilian young people abroad to get science degrees. It was Brazil. It was a Brazilian program. I remember that. And before the successor of Lula was impeached, I understood that she called in the minister of whatever ministry handles that, and called the person in and said, you only have less than 10% of these Brazilians going abroad in sciences. You only have 10% or less who are Black. This country is more than 10% Black. And she actually gave the person a demand that you got to push it to 50% to make sure that 50% of young Brazilians going abroad in sciences are Black. And so I'm wondering now what's going to happen. University is going to be pushing for that. Or not? Or has the present regime done such a great job in stocking decision makers with right-wing groups that it could be a hindrance to even Lula to undo that. And so, I hope that answers the question. Probably more than what you wanted. You need a microphone?
I will try to speak in English. I want to know what you think about the lose of power that white people don't want to face. Because I think it's almost everything about losing power. And it's hard for white people. And I want to know what you think about.
That's a very, very good point. If I was in the classroom, I'd give you an A+. And send you to Harvard, for that. That's it. It's all about power, isn't it? Losing power and not knowing how to manage that. That's why I said, remember I said, that it's harder for white people now. Very hard. I mean, that's why you're having in America all of these serial murderers, by these young white men who lost their place. I mean, because we've done a great job in America in talking about issues regarding women's rights. But what do we do about men? Especially these white men who lost their place. It used to be when you're a white male, you automatically got placed something because of your anatomy. You got what you wanted. But that's not the case anymore. And so we do need to have venues. It's one of the things actually that ASAPI wants to do. We want to have engaged conversations with white people in powerful positions about how do you make room for the top? Because it's here already. How do you do that? And by the way, you notice that I kept talking about how difficult this process is, because usually we talk about the process towards the end. We talk about reparations, we talk about apology, but if we're going to help all people, we're going to have more deeper, more greater length conversations before we even talk about reparations or whatever. We have to talk about who we are as people, how we got the power, and why it is a win-win situation to share power. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be like South Africans when they lost the country, they thought, in 1994. Instead of opening their hearts to black people, and they ran. They ran from the country and still are running, or they have built these walled-in houses. In fact, it's almost to the point of ridiculous. You go to Johannesburg, you go to Cape Town, and you see these walled-in neighborhoods, right? It makes you crack up. Who wants to come here? Nobody, really. But it's that white fear about, well, yes, we're a free country, so black people are just going to come and kill us all. And it happened. Black people are like all people. They're concerned about raising their families, finding work. They're concerned about making money. Not concerned about coming into your neighborhoods and do you any harm. And so the question is, we need to have some venues, right? We need to have some venues for some very serious conversations for white people to understand what's going on and how to flow with it. Just because you're no longer in control, it doesn't mean you lost everything. In fact, what we learned through diversity studies and inclusion studies in the United States, especially, is that when you let go of power and just start talking about competency, it's amazing how much better your corporation runs. Your profits go up. When you have people in control of decision making, based upon their competencies, not on the basis of their gender and their race. And so that's why presently, by the way, the Supreme Court of the United States is considering doing away with affirmative action. And liberal people are so afraid of that. You know something? A lot of people aren't really sweating it. You know why? Because we have 50 years of affirmative action that works. We have enough corporations now, not as many as we should, but we have enough corporations now, run by black people, run by white women, non-white women. We have universities now which are run by black people, white women, black women, Asian women, and they're doing just as better, if not even better, than running under white men. And so, that's why I say about intergroup contact, right? And immersion, and doing things together, like running a university. You find that you are just feral-minded, it works out much better. When you are trying to control everything and keeping everything in the courtyard based upon gender, you're going to run into trouble, especially in this day and age, because not everybody in the chicken coop has the same skills. And so, but the point made is that we need more places where people can have these kind of transparent conversations instead of evading it, avoiding it, going underground, trying to destroy, because the non-white character of the world is here. There's nothing you can do about that unless you're going to be destroying everybody around the world to genocide. It's not going to happen. And so for this university, even, needs to think about how, in its own way, in this area, you start having these kind of conversations about, how do you bring about inclusion? No need to be afraid. People are not going to do to you what you did to them. I mean, people are too busy. The United States, we haven't even reached that point yet. And so that's one of my hopes about the Lula administration, is that Lula will become much more of a restorative justice kind of president, and will help to do these kinds of exercises that need to be done, of getting people to understand, especially white people to understand, that there's virtue in sharing. It can happen here much more than it could happen in the United States, I think. Are you going to answer a question? Okay, good. You have a question? No, please, please.
Actually, you have talked a lot about forgiveness, building up the youth. Last time you talked about the Black youth in schools. I would like to know if in the future, I don't know, actually I won't be alive to see that,
Well, you don't know that.
I don't think so. I do believe that.
But have the faith. You
Yeah,
will.
yeah. Okay, but if we black people take over, won't we become as the old white people, like punishing, having that hearted hearts, thinking that we have to revenge what happened? Because mostly of the youth I have been talking around as I went to UK in Cambridge, most of the youth were black youth were thinking of revenge of what happened. How can we change that type of thinking that we don't need to revenge, that we have to be different from what happened? Okay, taking over what's our rights, not revenging, like looking at the white people as they're the ones who did wrong. Okay, we have to revenge ourselves. How can we educate people and try to change that type of thinking?
Well, I think that this is another great question, and thank you very much. But I think that we all have to realize that we're talking about leadership, a new kind of leadership. We're talking about how to identify a new kind of leadership that can be put in the same kind of venue, mobilized, and a kind of leadership that goes beyond the ideologies of the present, because we're in a fix. We're in a big fix as a human family, as I think you can imagine and agree with. And so, how do we begin to, get out of this conventional way of thinking about what happened, the response? How do we even begin to, develop a place for leadership, new kinds of leadership to understand that the past is a great school lesson. It's a great school lesson. We should never forget the past. In fact, that's what this whole restorative justice process is all about. We don't forget about the past. We make it more complex, more paradoxical. We make it something that we all have. Okay, and then we move on. We don't get stuck in it. We don't need leadership, irrespective of age, that is stuck in the past. We need to find people who want to understand the past. They need to understand the past and the perspectives of others about the past. And then they have the value system to move beyond that and not be expecting it. It's like this story I read when I was 12 years old. This mystery story about these people in a house that had no lights, and these people were stumbling around, wondering where the light switch was. Okay, that was the moral of the story. Where's the light switch? And they kept on and on, and blaming each other, and so forth and so on. And finally, at the end, somebody said, "Well, by the way, how long have we been in the darkness of this house, wandering around, trying to find the light switch?" Somebody said, 20 years. We need to find people who are willing to stop stumbling around in the dark and being their own victims. Okay? We can never forget about slavery. We can never forget about post-slavery. We can never forget about problems having to do with discrimination. You should always remember that. But we have to go beyond this. And remember what time it is. It's a new day. And young people, irrespective of their ancestries, have to understand this. Why get contaminated by the ways in which one's parents and grandparents think about things? Because The problem with the world now, the Western world, is that everybody is stuck in World War II. Right? Isn't that true? Virtually everything we talk about international policy is stuck in World War II. Why is that? And so I think what young people really, really want is to figure out ways where they can create new ways of thinking about things and moving ahead. And if one is well read up on one's history, among other things, you find out that war never works. War never works. Revenge never works. Getting back at people, it doesn't work. And so, how do we do this? You know, how do we find places like universities, think tanks, media houses, to get people who want to? See, some people want to remain in the past. Some people feel comfortable in the past. Some people enjoy being victims of the past. It makes them feel good. Okay, I'm not talking about those kinds of people, in this case, young people. I'm talking about young people who want to move ahead and create new futures that are based upon empowering everybody. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes. You're from the dental school? Oh, I need to talk to you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Thank you. Yes, well, thank you for that. And also, before I respond to your question, let me say that uh, we're starting a movement, right? And so with a movement, you always have people who um, start showing up. And so just spread the word about what ASAPI is about. And, one of the things I mentioned in the very beginning of our conversation is the fact that, ASAPI is a virtual think tank, also a movement. And so I'm hoping that enough people here got inspired enough that they want to stay in touch. And the next time I come back, we need a Coliseum. We need a Coliseum. But the answers are someplace. Now, I'm so happy to hear you talk about volunteerism because I noticed that there are certain very good practices which Virginia universities are beginning to pick up from forward-thinking American universities, such as having diversity and inclusion policies and management offices like vice dean for diversity inclusion, and I understand which are just getting started, and it's very important. These are very important innovations that have started in American universities and finding their ways down south here. And certainly the issue of volunteerism. I hope that USB and its branches will look at some of the very important models of service learning in the United States that is going on. Some of these universities even have, vice deans, vice provosts for student engagement, for service engagement. And a lot of these universities even require what we call, we call volunteerism, we call it service learning. These are actual requirements now. You have to do X number of hours of service learning before you get your degree in any field, whether it's in the liberal arts or is in the professional schools, medical schools, including dental schools. And so I'm hoping that will come here because it's a kind of education that is so important for young people, especially to understand that education isn't just theoretical, it's not just abstract, it's not just academic, but it's out here helping people and applying what one learns. Also, employers, right, are much more satisfied with students who have gone through programs like service learning programs, because internship programs, for instance, for undergraduate students, they don't want just undergraduate students who have experience in the classroom and no application experiences, and so also it's just a way for universities to improve the way in which they legitimize themselves. When you are doing service learning work as a campus, people, citizens, even the local politicians begin to look upon the university much more positively because they see the university people out doing things. And so I'll be very interested in following that, Professor McGill, to see how much that issue regarding volunteerism and service learning actually finds its way here, and this is in a way in which I can be of assistance with that, just let me know. But thank you very much. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments?
You okay?
Okay, I'm going to stand because I don't know whether it's my clone or what, but the insects love my face. Um, and so let me stand over here. If you see a stream of insects coming towards me, just tell me. But anyways, that's a very good question too. And it's especially a very good question in a historically white university, especially a huge university like it used to be is. And it's easy to get lost. It's easy to forget about one's own priorities in regards to one's own identity and these huge places. And so the major thing to remember is that this university belongs to young black students, like everybody. You know, being a young black once, I wasn't always an older man. I was once a student. Believe it or not, I used to even have hair. And so I had to learn that as a young black man in a overwhelmingly white environment, which wasn't made for me. Okay, and there's two responses to that. When you're young, you're black. You're virtually the only one on campus. Well, actually, there's three. There's three responses. First response, just give up. Just leave campus. Because there's nothing around like you, or nothing's going on. The courses I can't relate to me, and even the food in the cafeteria isn't like the way my mama made. And so it's easy for me to just say, why don't I just quit and go? And why bother? Why put up with all of the alienation? The second approach is to come together with other black students and just isolate myself. And unfortunately, university administrations have to be very, very sensitive about the fact that it's not just enough to admit black students, but you have to create a culture for them to feel that this is their home. Because if they don't feel as if they're home, it's not going to leave and isolate themselves. They're going to go into the corner, someplace, and not learn. Not learn as much as they could learn. And so university administrations, they have to have policies where they allow black students to have their space, to be respected, and to have faculty to have curriculum, to have degree programs, which are related to Black experiences if they want it, because there are some Black students who didn't want to relate to being Black. Okay, not every Black student wants to be considered to be a Black student, believe it or not. And so, but those who do, one has to develop certain mechanisms for that to occur. For Black faculty to come on staff, permanently visiting, having programs where they can learn about their history, or anybody else can learn about their history that's interested, right? And so if you don't do these things as administration, then of course you're going to experience Black students leaving a whole lot or just isolating themselves. And if they isolate themselves, the academic GPAs are not going to be that strong, because they don't feel that's a part of the system. They may graduate, right? May graduate 3 or 4 years later, but 25 years later, you ask them what they learned, it's not going to be too much. Now, the third thing that could happen, and I'm smiling because this is the approach that I used. Are you ready for it? Let me tell you what I did. As a very shy, and believe it or not, I used to be shy. Can you believe that? Don't answer that question. But once in a while time, I used to be kind of shy and first generation college student. And my parents went only as far as high school, which is pretty far for African Americans, by the way, in those days. And so there I was in this very, very strange place. I found out 2 days before my classes started that my scholarship was canceled. I could have went home. Defeated. In fact, I called home, asked my father, what should I do, because my money was cut off. My father wasn't necessarily pleased about me going to college. And so he could have said something like, well, we take out second mortgage on the house. Or maybe I'll go to your uncle and borrow some money for you. My father told me, you made your bed hard. You know that old saying? You made your bed hard, you sleep in it. But that's the night I became a man. How did I survive? I got involved. I got involved in that campus. In my first semester, I was the youngest and first Black president of my dormitory. Got involved in student council. Got involved in being on the student committee. One of the things I learned is that this is my campus too. And if I want people to hear my story, then I made sure I was part of the process to make that happen. Okay? Don't let anybody make you think, oh, you're not really Black because you're getting involved. Some people will say that to you. You're only Black if you isolate yourself. No. You're Black, you're a human being. And you're a student. You have a brain, you're smart. That's why you got to admit it. And so, you want your story to be told? Get involved. Find a club, or create a club. You want to go to college, postgraduate school? Okay, in classes, pay attention to professors who are open to you, and go to see them. Go to see professors and ask them what kind of research they're doing. Now, maybe your friends say, oh, that's kind of square. It's kind of square to go. Do you also use the word square? Word square, use here still? The word square, square. Maybe not. Maybe it's too old-fashioned. But you know what I'm talking about. You know, because sometimes when you're very young, you got peer group pressure. Okay, and some students say, oh, I don't go and talk to you professors. Oh, that's being square. Don't do that. And go in and talk to your professors who seem to have an interest in you. Go and see them. Say, you know, I want to know more about your research. You want to go on to other things. Getting mentors, right? People to help you. Go ahead. That's what university is all about. University isn't just about getting a degree. It's about being involved, and it's about becoming empowered. It's about finding people, older people, who can help you move on in life. That's what college is about. It's not just about getting a degree, you know, to hang on your wall. No. Finding people like Professor McGill here. You know, the professor and other professors who are here. That's what it's all about. So don't, and I'm saying this in answer to your question, because I know how black students can think. Oh, you don't want to do that. That's not cool. No, you're in university. And so make the university see you and incorporate what you're all about and what they do. And then one day you'll stand up, you'll be a major USP alumni person, making all kinds of money, and then give them a big donation. But the major thing is up to you.
I'm sorry, Professor. I'm sorry. But our staff need to stop the transmission in this moment. I invite all people here to talk outside our installation in other opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Está todo mundo convidado a continuar a conversa. O professor vai continuar aqui, mas uma semana praticamente, não é? E mesmo aqui continuar a conversa, mas a equipe técnica tem um horário para se retirar. A transmissão sem ser. Tá bom?